Hey everyone, tonight we'll delve into the forbidden name that echoes across the ancient shores of Lake Superior, where a single utterance could summon the Thunderbird's wrath or unravel the fragile peace between sky and water. What if the storm clouds gathering over those red pictographs weren't just weather, but a warning from deities long bound by oaths no mortal should whisper? You probably won't want to believe what you are about to hear. So, before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time so we can feel the shared chill of these ancient mysteries together. Now close your eyes. Imagine the ancient mountains cradling the Great Lake like a watchful elder. And let's unravel this epic tale together. You stand on the jagged lip of Agawa Rock, where the wind off Lake Superior carries the salt of endless waters and the faint, acrid bite of pine resin from the cliffs below. The year is one of those timeless summers in the land of the Anishinaabe, where the days stretch like the wings of some vast unseen bird, and the nights hum with the low thrum of loons calling across the bays. Your moccasins, soft leather worn thin from trails that twist through cedar groves, grip the warm stone beneath you. The rock face before you is alive with faded crimson ochre, images etched by hands that knew no metal tools, pictographs of canoes slicing through waves, thunderbirds with eyes like lightning, and serpentine underwater panthers coiling in the depths. These are not mere drawings, they're warnings. Oaths carved into the earth's skin by ancestors who bargained with the Monadus, the spirits that rule the wild places. The air thickens as thunder rumbles in the distance. Not the sharp crack of a summer squall, but a deep, rolling growl that vibrates through your chest, like the heartbeat of the lake itself. You came here on a dare from the elders in your village, a cluster of birch bark wigwams nestled in a cove where the Pick River meets the Superior waters. They spoke of a prophecy, one tied to the Thunderbird, the great Anamike, whose wings span the horizon and whose cries command the storms. In Native American lore, particularly among the Ojibwe people who have stewarded these lands for millennia, the Thunderbird is no distant god, but a protector, a feathered thunderer who battles the underwater spirits to maintain balance. Historical records from early French explorers in the 1600s describe how the Anishinaabe viewed Lake Superior as Gitchigumi, the Great Water, a living entity where such deities clashed in eternal cycles, much like the real fur trade wars that later scarred these shores with European greed. But today, as you trace the faded lines of a thunderbird's outstretched wing with your fingertip, the stone feels unnaturally warm, almost pulsing. Taboo stirs in your mind when whispered around the evening fires. Never speak the true name of the Thunderbird aloud, for it is Wakanyan in some tongues, Anamiki in others. But here in this sacred place, it is something older, a syllable that binds sky to earth. The quirky secret of this name is its dual nature. It hums like a conch shell held to the ear, echoing the bird's own call. But if uttered wrong, it twists the speaker's tongue into knots, forcing silence for a full moon cycle as penance. You feel it now, that forbidden name pressing against the roof of your mouth, heavy as a river stone, stirring behind your teeth like a secret too vast to swallow. The storm looms closer, clouds boiling over the horizon like ink spilled in water, and you huddle under an overhang of rock, your deerskin cloak pulled tight against the first fat drops of rain. The pictographs seem to shift in the dimming light, the Thunderbird's eyes narrowing as if judging your presence. You recall the village storyteller's words from last night's council, his voice low over the crackle of a sacred fire fed with sweetgrass and cedar. The Thunderbird watches for those who break the old pacts. Remember, heroes of old crossed these waters not with spears, but with silence. In the Anishinaabe tradition, such silence is a power, a taboo that preserves the harmony between the four directions, or fire, water, and the monatis who govern them. As the rain intensifies, drumming on the stone like impatient fingers, you press your palm flat against the rock. A faint vibration travels up your arm, and in that moment, the prophecy unfurls in your mind like a birch scroll unrolling. It speaks of imbalance, the underwater panther, Misha Peshu, stirring in the depths, jealous of the sky's dominion, and the Thunderbird poised to reclaim what was lost in a forgotten oath. You see flashes star omens falling like tears into the lake. A river crossing where blood price must be paid, in a labyrinth of fog-shrouded islands where trials await. The wind howls through the crevices, carrying the sonic texture of sacred spaces, the distant toll of a copper bell from some ancient temple ruin, the whisper of waves lapping at obsidian shores, and the iron scrape of Thunderbird talons on storm clouds. Your heart quickens as the first true bolt splits the sky, illuminating the pictograph in stark relief. The tabooed name rises unbidden, its bizarre quirk revealing itself. You taste copper on your tongue, metallic and sharp, as if the name itself bleeds from the deity's veins. In this mythology, the Thunderbird's artifact, a thunderstone forged from fallen sky iron, holds a rule. It only reveals its power to those who honor the silence, but tempts the bold with visions of flight. You clench your jaw, refusing to let it escape, but the prophecy presses harder. A perplexing question forming in the storm's breath. What if speaking it now could summon aid for your struggling village? Plagued by droughts that wither the wild rice beds, the rain sheets down, blurring the world into a veil of gray, and you slide along the rock face. Seeking shelter in a shallow cave, mouth etched with more symbols eclipses depicted as devouring mouths. Sacred bargains sealed with blood from thumbs pricked on flint. A local legend weaves in here, one from the oral histories of the Ojibwe in the 19th century during the treaty eras. Elders claim the Thunderbird sheltered canoes from gales near these very rocks, a historical echo of how the Great Lakes tempests shaped migrations and survivals long before maps claimed the land. You huddle there, the cave's damp cedar scent mingling with the ozone temps of lightning. Listen to the storm's symphony waves crashing like oathbreakers' drums, wind sighing through cedar boughs like forgotten hymns. As the thunder rolls again, closer now, you feel the weight of the through line pulling you forward. This is no idle visit. You are the one chosen by the elders to seek the Thunderbird's favor, to cross the threshold from ordinary shores into the realm of ancient mysteries. The quirky detail of the pictographs lingers their ochre. Mixed from hematite and bear fat, glows faintly in the storm's flash, as if infused with the Thunderbird's own electric temperament. A taboo against touching them with iron, lest the colors bleed away forever. But the question that remained was, as the storms I passed overhead and the winds hushed for a breath, would you hold the name silent, or let it loose and risk the sky's unforgiving judgment? The storm SI lingers just long enough for you to scramble down the slick trail from Agawa Rock, no breath ragged in the sudden hush, as if the sky itself holds its wing beats in suspense. You push through the underbrush, ferns slapping wet against your legs, until the path opens to the lakeshore village, where the Pick River spills its secrets into Superior as vast embrace. Twilight threads the air with the sharp, cleansing smoke of cedar fires, rising in lazy spirals from the cluster of wigwams that huddle like watchful turtles along the pebbled beach. Drumskin prayers pulse faintly from the central lodge, the rhythm a steady heartbeat against the retreating thunder, evoking the ancient mysteries of Native American lore, where every sound carries the weight of ancestors' voices. You slip into the village unseen, the tabooed name still a copper temps on your tongue, and find shelter in the shadow of your family's dwelling. Its birch bark walls patched with sweetgrass mats that whisper in the breeze. The elders gather around the fire pit as dusk deepens, their faces etched with lines like the pictographs you just fled, stories of heroes who danced with deities under star omens, balancing the scales of sky and water. One elder, your grandmother Nookamis, spots you first, her eyes sharp as flint under her gray braids. She draws you close, her hands rough from years of weaving bulrush nets, and presses a steaming mug of cedar tea into your palms. The liquid warms you from within, its bitter earthiness chasing the storm's chill, while the village hums with the low murmur of voices sharing fragments of the old ways. As the group settles on woven reed mats, the fire crackles with fat wood logs, casting flickering shadows that dance like underwater panthers in the shallows. Nookamis begins the evening's teaching, her voice a calm cadence that builds suspense like the slow swell of waves before a gale. "I'm in this season of long light," she says, gesturing to the horizon where the lake meets the fading sun. "We honor the law no one dares break, the summer silence." You lean in, the drumskins from the prayer lodge now a distant throb syncing with your pulse. This law, woven into the fabric of Anishinaabe tradition, forbids loud boasts or hasty oaths under the high sun. What invites the Thunderbird's scrutiny, those iron wings that could eclipse the warmth, with sudden frost. It's a taboo born of necessity, ensuring that the Manitus, the spirits of place, remain undisturbed during the time when wild rice ripens and fish schools thicken the bays. The quirky detail of this law reveals itself in her tale. It applies not just to words, but to echoes. The bizarre rule that any spoken promise must fade without bouncing back from water or stone lest it multiply like ripples and summon unintended boons from the deities. You nod, remembering how, as a child, you once shouted across the river and watched a sudden fog roll in, muffling the world as if the lake itself enforced the silence. Round the fire, the others murmur agreement, their deerskin robes rustling softly, scented with the damp cedar that clings to everything here. One younger hunter shares a local legend, drawing from the oral histories passed down through generations in the 1800s, during the time of the treaty signings that redrew the maps of these lands. An Ojibwe band near Sault Ste. Marie observed this summer silence so strictly that when European traders arrived with iron axes, the elders claimed it preserved the Thunderbird's favor, shielding their rice harvests from the droughts that plagued other villages. A historical fact echoed in fur trade journals where explorers noted the Anishinaabes' reverence for seasonal taboos as key to their resilience amid colonial pressures. Nukamis continues, her words painting the village in sensory strokes, the sizzle of venison roasting on green willow spits, the faint toll of a copper amulet dangling from a nearby lodgepole, and the whisper of wind through cedar boughs overhead, like the breath of fate weavers spinning threads of destiny. You sip your tea, feeling the through line pull tighter, the prophecy from Agawa, now a living omen in your veins, urging you toward a threshold you can't yet name. She speaks of the Thunderbird not as a distant force, but as kin to the heroes of old, those who crossed rivers under starlit bargains, paying blood price for glimpses of the divine. The Anamaiki watches, she warns, for in Norse legends across the cold seas, thunder gods like Thor wield hammers that echo our own skybird's cries. Yet here, in our ancient mysteries, the price is silence, not thunder. The fire pops, sending embers skyward like tiny eclipses, and you feel the weight of the law settling over you. Oh. No one dares break it in summer, for doing so unravels the sacred pacts, the accords that keep Mishapechu, the underwater panther, from dragging canoes to the depths. A proverb surfaces in her telling. Smoke rises straight in silence, words twist like storms. You glance at the lake, its surface now a mirror of deepening indigo, reflecting the first stars that tilt like watchful eyes. The drumskins quicken from the prayer lodge. It's a sonic texture of stretched hide vibrating under calloused hands, invoking the oathkeeper spirits who guard against broken vows. As the group shares a hymn fragment, voices low and harmonious when the lake drinks the sun, hold your tongue to the wind, you sense the psychological tension building, the epic scope of your role unfolding. You're no longer just a villager. The forbidden name has marked you, pulling you into trials where artifacts like thunderstones will test your resolve. Nukamis places a hand on your knee, her gaze piercing. The shaking tent calls tomorrow, she says softly, where the seer will speak what the storm whispered to you. The others nod. No. The cedar smoke curling around their faces like protective veils. And you wonder at the labyrinthine paths this prophecy might lead you through cedar palisades, cursed relics humming with power. The night deepens, the village's fires dimming to glowing coals, and the law's taboo wraps around you like a second skin, forbidding even the whisper of doubt. In this lakeshore haven, where drumskin prayers thread the dusk like veins of ochre, you've learned the fragility of words, how they can summon or shatter the balance deities demand. A brief confessional slips from your lips to Nukamis alone. Grandmother, the name, Dot Burns. She hushes you with a finger to her lips, the quirky enforcement of the law making your throat tighten, as if invisible reeds bind it. But the question that remained was as the last drumbeat faded into the loon calls over the water, would the seer's tent reveal a guide to cross the forbidden threshold, or merely echo the storm's unrelenting demand for your silence? Dawn breaks over the village with a hush that feels like the lake holding its breath, the first light gilding the birch bark roofs and turning the Pick River into a ribbon of molten silver. You rise before the others, the tabooed name a dull ache in your throat from the night's silence, and make your way to the prayer lodge where the shaking tent awaits. The structure is a dome of fresh-cut saplings, lashed with sinew, covered in painted hides that flap gently in the morning breeze. Their symbols spirals of thunderbirds and coiled serpents evoking the ancient mysteries of the Anishinaabe, where such tents serve as portals to the spirit world. Your moccasins sink into the dew-wet grass as you approach, the air thick with the earthy scent of smoldering sweetgrass, braided and lit to purify the space before the rite begins. The seer, an elder named Wabzi, motions you inside with a nod, his face weathered like driftwood polished by countless waves. He is the oracle of the village, a man who has walked the threshold between worlds since boyhood, his eyes clouded with the milkiness of visions long gazed upon. You crawl through the low entrance on hands and knees, the hide flap sealing behind you with a soft thud, plunging the interior into a womb-like dimness, broken only by shafts of light filtering through seams. The ground is layered with cedar boughs, their needles releasing a sharp, resinous fragrance that clings to your skin, mingling with the faint, metallic tang of the forbidden name still lingering in your mouth. Wabzi settles opposite you, his drum-a-tot circle of deer hide stretched over a cedar frame resting across his lap, its mallet carved from elk antler polished to a gleam. As he begins to chant, low and rhythmic, the tent starts to quiver, the saplings creaking like bones under strain. This is the shaking tent ceremony, a practice rooted in the Midewind tradition of the Ojibwe, where shamans communed with manitous through ecstatic trances. Historical accounts from 19th century explorers like those who traversed the Great Lakes in the 1840s describe witnessing these rites among the Anishinaabe bands, where the tent's violent shaking was said to be caused by spirit helpers manifesting physically, a testament to the enduring power of oral traditions amid encroaching settler worlds. The vibrations build the air humming with an otherworldly energy, and you feel it in your chest. Dual pull as if the seer's voice splits, speaking in two directions at once. Forward into the tent's confines, and backward into the ether, echoing promises that ripple like stones skipped across still water. Listen, Wabzi intones, eyes' words weaving suspense with the calm precision of a fate weaver threading a loom. The Thunderbird has marked you with its omen, child of the shores. The storm at Agawa was no idle gale, was the sky deity, calling for a hero to mend the old rift. The tent shakes harder now, the hides rattling like Thunderbird wings in miniature, and you grip the cedar boughs, their texture rough and grounding against your palms. Sensory details flood in, the drum's steady thump syncing with your heartbeat, the whisper of wind seeping through the seams like ancestral breaths, and the faint, acrid smoke curling from a central brazier where sage bundles burn, their flames dancing shadows across the seer's impassive face. In this Norse legends echo faintly where seers like the Volva trembled in trances to divine the gods. Well, yet here in our Native American lore, the shaking is a bridge to deities who demand reciprocity's silence for sight, blood price for guidance. The voice splits again, promising a guide who swims older than iron. And you lean forward, the psychological tension coiling like Mishapeshu's tail in the depths. Wabisi's eyes roll back, whites gleaming in the dim light, and he speaks of the ancient sturgeon, Manitou of the deep rivers, scales etched with the patina of epochs before the first copper mines scarred Superior shores. This guide, he reveals, is no mere fish, but a threshold guardian, ancient as the glaciers that carved the lake. With a temperament as unyielding as obsidian bizarre in its quirk, it communicates not through words, but by thrumming vibrations that resonate in the bones, forcing the listener to feel truths rather than hear them. A taboo against questioning its counsel, lest it dive silent forever, leaving the seeker adrift in fog-bound currents. You confess in a whisper, the intimacy of the tent allowing this first-person breach, seer, the name. It pulls at me like a current I can't fight. Wabzi pauses, the shaking easing for a breath, and nods, his mallet tapping once a soft, resonant note that vibrates through the ground. The sturgeon will test that pull, he replies, his voice now singular, laced with epic cadence. It swims the black waters where heroes of old forged sacred bargains, crossing rivers under star omens to face the Thunderbird's lodge. Remember the proverb etched in the old canoes? Iron rusts, but oaths endure in the deep. The tent quivers in you, and visions flicker in the smoke. You in a bark canoe? The sturgeon's massive form gliding beneath, its thrums guiding you past labyrinthine shoals where cursed relics lie half buried in silt, humming with anomalous power. The seer's chant rises, invoking the oath-keeper spirits with fragments of a hymn waters part for the silent heart. Skies open for the sworn, and the shaking intensifies, the structure groaning as if alive. Sonic textures layering in, the creak of saplings like iron in a distant storm, the hiss of sage on hot stones, and the dual voice promising escalation.
Nice.
This guide will lead you to the river mouth where eclipses mark the time for blood price. But only if you honor the taboo of the tent. No laughter, no doubt spoken aloud for such breaks, summon tricksters who twist paths into mazes. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, the sturgeon embodies the underworld guide, its anomalous function to ferry souls not just across water, but through time's folds, revealing glimpses of deities' feuds Mishopushu versus the Thunderbird, a clash as old as the land's birthing. As the ceremony peaks, the tent stills abruptly, leaving you breathless in the sudden quiet, the cedar's damp scent now mingled with sweat and sacred ash. Wabazi opens his eyes, the milkiness clearing slightly, and places a small talisman in your hand, polished riverstone etched with a sturgeon's fin. Cool and smooth, its weight a reminder of the costs ahead. Traded memories for safe passage, scars from the trials to come. The through line tightens, pulling you from the ordinary village into the divine's grasp. Where ancient mysteries unfold like the lake's hidden bays, you emerge into the morning light, the village stirring with the clatter of cooking pots, and children's laughter muffled by the summer law. But the promise lingers in your bones, thrumming like the guide's unspoken call. The quirky detail of the shaking tent surfaces in your mind as you walk back, its hides tanned with brain and smoke. Sometimes bear faint impressions of spirit hands pressing from within, a bizarre rule that they must be renewed each season, lest the imprints fade and weaken the portal's seal. Around you, the lake laps gently, waves whispering oaths to the shore, and you feel the epic scope broadening. This is your crossing, the threshold where heroes earn the deity's boons through endurance. But the question that remained was, as the sun climbed higher and the sturgeon's thrumming echoed faintly in your chest, would this ancient swimmer reveal the path to the Thunderbird's favor? Or demand a silence so profound it swallowed your voice forever? The sun arcs toward the treetops as you wander the village's edge. The sturgeon's thrumming still a faint vibration in your ribs like a drumbeat deferred to the evening's rhythm. You find a quiet spot on the pebbled shore where the Pick River fans out into Superior S embrace, settling on a weathered log smoothed by generations of sitters. The air carries the clean sharpness of drying fish strung on cedar racks, mingling with the distant calls of gulls wheeling over the waves. Their cries a prelude to the night's unfolding omens. In the Anishinaabe way, these shores are alive with the whispers of Monotus, where heroes of old read the skies not as distant lights, but as messages from deities who tilt the stars to enforce their pacts, much like the ancient mysteries that bind the world in threads of fate. As twilight bleeds into the water, painting the horizon in strokes of bruised purple and fading gold, you build a small fire with flint and tinder from your pouch, its crackle a companion to the lake's gentle lap against the stones. The summer law of silence presses upon you, muting even your thoughts. But the prophecy from Agawa and the seer's promise pull your gaze upward. The first stars prick the velvet sky, hesitant at first, then boldening into a scatter that mirrors the wild rice heads swaying in the bays. You recall Nukamisa's tales by the lodge fire, how star omens guide the threshold crossings, sacred bargains sealed under their watch, and how the Thunderbird, as oath-keeper, bends the celestial map to judge the worthy from the reckless. Suddenly, the night tilts so it seems as a shower of meteors streaks across the dome over Lake Superior. It's not a gentle rain, but a fierce cascade, tails blazing like the feathers of a wounded Anamike. They arc from east to west, silent at first, then whispering through the air with a faint hiss that raises the hairs on your arms. The crooked constellation, you know as the Thunderbird. I-7 stars hooked like a bird. Talon blinks in response, its light pulsing, regularly as if the deity itself watches your oath, the one forming unspoken in your heart to seek the Skybird aid. For the village withering fields, this is no random display. Native American lore, such meteor falls are harbingers, echoes of the Thunderbird's battles with underwater foes. where fragments of sky iron plummet as warnings or gifts. A local legend from the oral traditions of the Ojibwe bands around the Great Lakes tells of a 19th century event during the long winter of 1816 when a meteor storm lit the night so brightly that elders interpreted it as the Thunderbird rallying against encroaching famines, guiding hunters to new grounds and preserving the people's resilience, a historical ripple in the fur trade era. When such signs bolstered communities against the white man's disruptions, the meteors multiply, streaking in erratic patterns that tilt the entire starfield, as if Superior's vast waters below exert a magnetic pull, drawing the heavens into their depths. You shield your eyes from the glare, the fire's embers flaring in sympathy, and feel the psychological intrigue deepen. Is this the sturgeon's call manifesting in the sky? Or the first trial of your journey? Testing if your silence holds against the spectacle's temptation to cry out in awe. The constellation's blink quickens a bizarre quirk of this mythic artifact in the celestial weave. Its light doesn't steady, but warbles like a conch shell as hum an anomalous function tied to oaths. When it watches a sworn promise, it emits a soft infrasonic tone that only the oathbound can hear vibrating in the chest, like the seer's tent, enforcing the taboo against falsehoods by tightening the throat if lies form on the tongue. You rise, pacing the shore, the pebbles shifting underfoot with a gritty crunch that grounds you amid the cosmic display. At the sonic textures layer in the meteors. Distant sizzle fading into the lake's rhythmic hush, the fires pop and sigh like breath held in ritual, and now, that low warble from the stars threading through the night like a fate weaver's shuttle. In this pantheon, the Thunderbird's eye serves as threshold guardian for skybound quests. Its temperament fierce yet patient, demanding blood price in the form of a personal relica lock of hair, a cherished bead offered to the waters before ascent. You touch the talisman's stone from Wabazi, its cool surface now warming in your palm, and whisper a fragment of him to steady yourself. Stars fall, but oaths rise on wings of iron. The words feel heavy, echoing the epic cadence of heroes who braved eclipses and labyrinths for divine boons, their stories akin to those in Greek mythology, where constellations judged the gods' quarrels, or Norse legends, where Odin's ravens scouted the fates of mortals. The confessional rises unbidden, your voice soft against the wind. The sky bends for me now, but what if my oath cracks under its gaze? The warble intensifies, as if answering, and you kneel by the water's edge, dipping your fingers into the chill flow, feeling the current tug like an underworld guide urging you onward. The meteors taper, leaving trails of fading glow that reflect in Superior's mirror. The constellation steadies, its blink a solemn affirmation. This omen escalates the trials ahead, the Rivermouth Bargain, the Cedar Labyrinth, the Storm Lodge where cursed relics await. Sensory creep builds, the air grows heavier with ozone. As if the lake sweats anticipation, damp cedar from distant groves carried on the breeze, and the faint ring of iron from imagined Thunderbird talons scraping the void. You feed the fire a handful of cedar bark, its smoke rising straight and thin, honoring the summer law, and watch as the stars realign, the tilt correcting into familiar patterns. Yet the crooked eye lingers in your periphery, watching its quirky rule, revealing more. It only blinks for those marked by prophecy but demands. A counter-oath whispered to the lake, a sacred bargain where the speaker trades a memory of joy for one of vigilance. In the Anishinaabe tradition, such celestial watchers enforce the costs of miracles, scars not of flesh, but of forgotten songs, censuring balance between the ordinary world and the divine's grasp. The village lights flicker in the distance, drumskins resuming their evening pulse, a reminder of the through line. Your path now lit by falling stars, pulling you toward the elder at the river mouth, who will seal the next step. The night deepens, the meteor showers afterglow fading into the profound dark of Superior's shores. And you sit there, the warble fading to a whisper in your bones, the oath solidifying like frost on autumn leaves. Ancient mysteries unfold in these tilts of the heavens, where deities like the Thunderbird weave heroes into their eternal feuds, promising power at the price of unyielding truth. But the question that remained was, as the constellation's final blink sealed your unspoken vow, and the lake lapped greedily at the shore, would this starry witness guide you to the river mouth's guardian, or betray your silence to the depths below? The constellation S-blink fades into the night S-fabric as you gather your small. Bundle a deerskin pouch with the talisman stone, a strip of pemmican wrapped in birch bark, and a flint knife etched with sturgeon scales, and set out along the shore under the moon's pale sickle. The path hugs the Pick River's curve, its waters murmuring secrets to the encroaching darkness, while the lake's vast breath sighs against the pebbles, urging you toward the mouth where river meets sea like expanse. The star omen's tilt lingers in your mind like a half-remembered dream, the Thunderbirds. And now a steady sentinel overhead, its watch a reminder that heroes and ancient mysteries tread such paths not alone, but shadowed by deities who demand every step be measured in oaths. The air cools with the river's mist, carrying the faint, fishy temps of spawning grounds in the deeper, loamy scent of mudflats exposed by the ebbing tide, a sensory prelude to the bargain awaiting. You reach the river mouth as the moon climbs higher, its light silvering the delta where the Pick fans into shallow bays, fringed with cattails that rustled like whispered taboos. An elder waits there, silhouetted against the water's gleam. Bidwood, it village's oathkeeper. His frame bent like an ancient cedar, but his presence unyielding as the granite boulders that guard the inlet. He sits on a low stool carved from driftwood, a fire of driftwood and willow twigs burning low beside him, its flames licking at a copper kettle that bubbles with a herbal infusion. Roots of wild ginger and sweet flag, their steam rising in tendrils that twist like fate weaver's threads. Bidwood's eyes, deep set and knowing, fix on you as you approach, his hands clasped around a staff topped with a small thunderstone. Polished obsidian, veined with copper flecks that catch the firelight, mean the Anishinaabe tradition. River mouths are liminal places, thresholds where monatas convene. And Bidwood embodies the guardian role, enforcing the pacts that keep the balance between flowing waters and still depths. He gestures for you to sit on the opposite side of the fire, the ground soft with river silt that clings to your moccasins, and offers a gourd of the steaming brew without a word, honoring the summer law of measured silence. You sip the liquid, warming your core with a spicy bite that chases the night's chill, and feel the through line of your quest tighten the prophecy. The seer's promise, the starry tilt, all converging here in this sacred bargain. The sturgeon has thrummed your path, Bidwood says at last, his voice a gravelly cadence that builds suspense like the slow build of thunder over the horizon, and the eye has witnessed your vow. Now the Thunderbird calls for protection over our people, the droughts that wither the rice, the fish that flee the bays, but boons from deities carry costs, child of the shores. He leans forward, the fire's pop underscoring his words, and traces a symbol in the air with his staff, a circle bisected by a wing, the mark of the Anamike. The bargain unfolds in ritual detail, the elder demanding a sacred exchange, or people's safety woven into the skybird's wings. Storms turn to gentle rains that nourish the fields, in return for a secret you must carry in silence. This secret, he reveals, is the true measure of the forbidden name's power, not just a syllable, but a fragment of the Thunderbird's own essence, a whispered lore from the time of creation when the great bird forged the lakes from its tears. You feel the weight of it as he speaks, the psychological tension coiling like river currents meeting the lake's resistance. For in Native American lore, such pacts echo the hero's trials in Greek mythology, where Prometheus bound fire from the gods at the price of eternal chains, or Norse legends where Odin traded an eye for wisdom's depths. A historical fact weaves into his telling in the 1700s. During the era of the Great Peace of Montreal, Anishinaabe at river mouths like this one negotiated similar accords, with French allies using sacred silences in councils to invoke Monitous for protection against Iroquois, raids a practice noted in Jesuit records that preserved the oral traditions amid colonial treaties, ensuring the people's survival through balanced diplomacy and spiritual resolve. Bidwood passes you a small artifact from his pouch, a slender reed flute, hollowed from river cane and bound with red sinew, its surface incised with tiny pictographs of eclipses and blood drops. Blow no note, he warns, for this is the vessel of the secret. It holds the Thunderbird's breath, quirky in its temperament. When silence guards it, the flute warms like living flesh. But speak the lore aloud, and it chills to frost. Cracking the player's lips as taboo bit a bizarre rule that the secret must migrate from ear to ear like a living flame, never written, lest the deities reclaim it in a sudden gale. You take it the reed smooth and faintly pulsing under your fingers its anomalous function. Tying to the Oathkeeper-S domain, it amplifies whispers of truth but silences lies with a shrill, piercing wail that summons loons to circle mockingly overhead. The ritual deepens, the fires glow, casting long shadows that dance like underwater panthers in the shallows, and you kneel to seal the pact. Bidwood pricks your thumb with a flint splinter quick, ceremonial. No more than a sting and you let 3 drops fall into the kettle, the blood swirling like crimson threads in the brew. A blood price for the miracle of protection. He mirrors the act, his own drop mingling, and intones a hymnal fragment. River meets lake in sworn accord. Silence binds what storms would hoard. The sonic textures envelop you, the kettle's soft bubble like a heartbeat. The river's lap against the mudflats echoing sacred bargains, and the distant call of a loon, sharp as iron, marking the moment's gravity.
Sensory creep heightens.
The mist dampens your skin like cold stones sweating the herbal steam. Carries salt incense from the lake, and the reed flute's warmth spreads up your arm. Urging the secret into your mind, a vision of the Thunderbird's nest in storm clouds woven from copper veins and star feathers where oaths live as living relics. A brief confessional escapes in the intimacy of the right elder. This silence, it feels like drowning in air. Bidwood nods, his staff tapping the ground once. A resonant thud that vibrates through the silt. Drown in it, then rise as hero, he replies. The epic scope broadening as he describes the trials ahead, the ancient sturgeon's crossing. Cedar labyrinth where threshold guardians test the soul. In this coherent pantheon, the river mouth serves as the first true crossing. Place of recurring motifs where cursed relics like the flute demand traded memories. ULL, forget the taste of your mother's wild rice porridge, a small scar on the heart for the village's bounty. The elder stands, extinguishing the fire with a handful of lake water that hisses into steam, and points to the dark waters. The sturgeon waits at dawn. Carry the secret as your shadow, that no word unthread the loom. You rise, the reed flute tucked into your pouch. Its warmth a constant companion, and watch as Bidwood melts into the night, leaving you alone with the river's flow and the lake's endless whisper. The bargain seals in your veins, the protection promised like a wing over the village. But the silence now, a heavier chain, braided with the costs of divine favor, own hush for rains that will come, traded joys for enduring vigilance. Ancient mysteries pulse in the delta's veins, where deities like the Thunderbird extend boons to those who pay the full measure, echoing the labyrinthine paths of fate. But the question that remained was, as the moon dipped toward the horizon and the sturgeon's thrumming stirred faintly from the depths, would this secret's weight guide you safely across the black waters, or sink you into the very currents it sought to calm? Dawn creeps over the river mouth like a reluctant witness. The sky a wash of pale gray, streaked with the first blush of sun. As you make your way to the water's edge with the reed flute's warmth pressing against your chest like a second heart, the bargain's blood price lingers in your thumb. A faint throb wrapped in clean linen from Bidwood's pouch. A reminder that sacred pacts and ancient mysteries etch their costs, not just in words, but in the body's quiet protests. You spot the bark canoe waiting, pulled from its willow cache, and launched by unseen hands likely the elder's own, in the night's hush its hull of birch and cedar strips gleaming with fresh pitch, the prow carved in the shape of a sturgeon's blunt snout, eyes inlaid with abalone shell that catch the light like watchful monitors. The black water of Superior stretches before you, still as polished obsidian, under the calm but you know its depths. Hide currents that twist like the feuds of deities, where heroes cross not with oars alone, but with thrums of guidance from the unseen. You step into the canoe with deliberate care, the craft rocking gently under your weight, its ribs flexing like living bone as you settle amidships on a bed of woven reeds that cushion the hardwood. The paddle, a long-ash shaft tipped with a broad blade, rests across your lap, but intuition or the secret's pull tells you it may go unused. This crossing demands trust in the ancient one promised by the seer. The air hangs heavy with the lake's breath, a cool mist rising from the surface that dampens your cloak and carries the faint primordial scent of deep silt and decaying leaves evoking the underworld's threshold, where ordinary shores give way to the divine's domain. You push off with the paddle, the blade slicing the water with a soft schlick, and the canoe glides into the black expanse. The rivers flow, merging seamlessly, with Superior's vastness pulling you toward the fog-shrouded islands that loom like labyrinthine guardians on the horizon. Beneath the prow, the thrumming begins a low, resonant vibration like a drumhead stretched taut and struck by an unseen mallet, rising from the depths to sync with the canoe's keel. It courses through the hull into your bones, confirming the ancient sturgeon's presence. This Manitou, older than the iron-veined cliffs that cradled the lake, swims in tandem, its massive form a shadow gliding just below the surface, scales whispering against the water like secrets traded in the dark. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, the sturgeon embodies the underworld guide, trickster's kin with a temperament as enduring as the glaciers that birthed these waters. Its role to ferry the oathbound across black expanses where blood price and sacred bargains test the soul. You lean forward, peering into the inky depths, and catch a glimpse. A leviathan shape, armored in bony plates etched by eons, its barbels trailing like fate weaver's threads, eyes glowing with the bioluminescence of forgotten stars. The thrumming modulates, conveying not words but sensations, a steady pulse urging you eastward, toward the cedar-fringed isles where the prophecy's next trial awaits. Sensory details envelop the crossing. The mist est chill beads on your skin like sweat from cold stone. The canoe's faint creak harmonizing with the sturgeon's drum-like call, and the occasional splash of a tailfin far below, echoing iron and honor in a distant storm. You honor the taboo of this passage, no songs. No calls to the wind for such breaks, summon eddies that could capsize the craft, a rule as old as the Manitou's laws. A local legend surfaces in your mind, drawn from the oral histories of the Ojibwe who navigated these waters in the mid-1800s. During the copper rush, when miners scarred the shores near Ontonagon, a band of elders claimed a sturgeon guided their canoes through a sudden gale off Isle Royale, a historical echo in explorer journals where such crossings preserved trade routes and evaded shipwrecks, blending mythic guidance with the practical survival of Great Lakes voyagers amid industrial encroachment. The quirky detail of the sturgeon reveals itself as the thrumming intensifies. Its anomalous function lies in the barbels, which not only sense the lake's hidden paths but can extend like living ropes to steady the canoe in swells, yet they demand a bizarre tola-traded memory plucked from the traveler's mind. Mid-crossing, leaving a scar of absence, such as the face of a lost kin blurred forever. You feel it now, the vibration probing. The confessional slips out in the isolation of the water. Great swimmer. Take what you must, but let me remember the village's need. The thrumming pauses, then resumes softer, as if acknowledging, and you paddle lightly to maintain the rhythm. The black water parting like a veil to the divine. This crossing escalates the epic scope, braiding motifs of river thresholds, here expanded to lake vastness with star omens from the night before. The morning sky clears, revealing the Thunderbird's eye high above, its steady gaze a callback to the tilt that marked your oath. Deeper into the fog, the sturgeon's shadow grows bolder, circling the canoe in lazy arcs that send ripples radiating like oaths spreading across the surface. You sense the psychological tension building. The secret from Bidwit burns hotter in the reed flute, its warmth a counterpoint to the lake's chill, tempting you to whisper it to the guide for alliance, but the taboo holds silence for safe passage or risk the depths claiming you as blood price. Hymnal fragments rise unbidden. Drum of the deep calls the sworn. Wings wait beyond the black. In this mythology, the sturgeon's role mirrors underworld guides in Greek tales like Charon, ferrying souls across the Styx for obels, or Norse legends, where Nidhogg gnaws at roots to reveal Yggdrasil's secrets, yet here the cost is intimate memories. Traded for glimpses of the Thunderbird's lodge where cursed relics hum with power. The canoe slices through a bank of thicker mist, the thrumming quickening like a heartbeat in anticipation. And you spot the first island emerging, a low hump of rock and cedar, its palisades rising like natural walls, veined with moss that drips like incense in the damp air. Sensory creep heightens the water's surface, now sweats a faint phosphorescence from the sturgeon's passage. The air rings with the muffled toll of hidden copper bells in the fog, and the canoe's wood takes on a damp cedar scent as if absorbing the island's breath. The guide's vibration conveys urgency. This is the threshold to the labyrinth, where tricksters and oath-keepers await, But first the crossings ride a drop of your blood into the water, pricked anew from the thumb's healing wound to seal the alliance. You comply. The sting sharpen the cold, and watch the crimson bloom dissipate like a fading eclipse. The thrumming approving with a resonant swell that lifts the canoe gently. The Ancient One surfaces briefly, its eye meeting yours avast, its unblinking orb of green fire before submerging, leaving you with the scar of a half-forgotten lullaby from childhood. Traded for the knowledge that the island holds the Thunderstone's song. Heroes in these ancient mysteries endure such losses, emerging scarred but enlightened, their paths woven into the deity's grand feuds. The fog parts slightly, revealing the cedar labyrinth's shadowed maw, and you feel the through line propel you forward, from black waters to veiled trials, the sturgeon's drum echoing the village's distant prayers. But the question that remained was, as the island's silhouette sharpened and the thrumming faded into the lap of waves against the prow, would this underworld guide's toll reveal the labyrinth's safe heart, or leave you wandering its twists with memories unraveling like mist? The canoe nudges against the island's rocky fringe with a gentle scrape, the sturgeon-esque thrumming, dissolving into the lake's ambient. Hush, as if the ancient swimmer has delivered you to the threshold, and now withdraws to the black depths, its toll exacted in the haze of that fading lullaby. You step out onto the pebbled shallows, water swirling cold around your ankles, and secure the craft to a gnarled cedar root that twists from the shore like a sentinel-esque claw. Fog clings to the isle like a living shroud, muting the world to grays and greens where the cedar palisades rise in irregular walls. Natural. Formations of wind-sculpted trees, their trunks fused into barriers that breathe with the island's pulse needles, whispering in the scant breeze. This is no ordinary outcrop. In the Anishinaabe, such fog-locked islands serve as liminal realms, labyrinths, where monatas test the hero's resolve. Echoing the ancient mysteries where ordinary paths twist into trials of the soul, much like the Minotaur's maze in Greek mythology, or the tangled roots of Yggdrasil in Norse legends. You shoulder your pouch, the reed flute's warmth a steady anchor against your side, and begin the ascent, moccasins gripping the slick moss that carpets the incline like a living pelt. The air thickens with the resinous tang of cedar, sharp and evergreen, mingled with the damp earthiness of exposed roots that snake across the ground like veins of the island itself. The palisades close in, their boughs interlocking overhead to form a canopy that filters the morning light into dappled shafts, casting shadows that shift like watchful eyes. Sensory creep builds immediately, the fog sweats from the bark, beating on your skin like cold perspiration, and a faint, rhythmic whoosh emanates from the maze's heart, not wind, but the breathing way. A sonic texture of air drawn through hollow trunks, as if the labyrinth inhales your approach and exhales doubt. Deeper in, the path forks without warning, cedar walls pressing close on either side, their rough textures brushing your arms like the hide of some vast beast. You pause, heart quickening to match the island's cadence. And recall Bidwood's warning at the river mouth. This threshold guardian demands not sight or strength, but the harmony of your inner rhythm with the maze's own. The guardian manifests not as flesh, but as the isle's spirit, a Manitou, woven from the cedars themselves. Its temperament patient, yet inexorable. A quirk revealed in local legend. It possesses an anomalous function where the walls part only for heartbeats that echo the sturgeon. Whoa, thrumming, but bizarrely, it feeds on discord-growing thorns that snag the unwary if fear quickens the pulse to wildly enforcing a taboo against hastrun, and the maze tightens like a noose. Pause in stillness, and it guides with subtle nudges. You press on, choosing the left fork by instinct, the ground softening underfoot to a bed of fallen needles that cushion each step with a muffled sigh. The breathing way intensifies, a low inhalation that draws the fog inward, revealing glimpses of inner clearings, circles of flat stones etched with Thunderbird talons, relics from rituals where oath-keepers once bound sacred bargains under star omens. A historical fact threads into your thoughts, drawn from the Ojibwe oral traditions preserved in the 19th century. During the 1836 Treaty of Washington era, when lands like this island were ceded under duress, elders of the lake, superior bands retreated to such fog-bound sanctuaries for vision quests. using cedar mazes to commune with Monitu's and reaffirm spiritual sovereignty, practice echoed in ethnographies by figures like Henry Schoolcraft, who documented how these labyrinthine rites sustained cultural resilience against forced relocations and assimilation pressures. The labyrinth twists, walls curving in deceptive arcs that loop back on themselves, and you feel the psychological tension coil tighter, the epic scope of your quest narrowing to this intimate trial. Your heartbeat, still attuned to the sturgeon's drum from the crossing, sinks tentatively with the aisle's breath in, out, a deliberate rhythm that parts the cedars just enough to reveal the next turn. But doubt creeps in, a whisper from the traded memory scar, and your pulse stutters, causing the walls to rustle closer, needles pricking like warnings. You halt, closing your eyes to the fog, and confess softly to the shadows. Guardian of green, my heart falters. But the village's silence drives me. The breathing pauses, then resumes deeper, as if acknowledging the oral tradition intimacy. And a path opens a narrow gap scented with salt incense from hidden braziers, where embers glow faintly in rock crevices. Emerging into a central glade ringed by towering cedars that form a natural amphitheater, you find the threshold guardian's core, massive. Hollowed trunk at the heart, its interior carved into a seat of living wood pulsing with the island's life. No figure awaits, but the air hums with presence. The whoosh now a chorus of wind through fluted branches, invoking the deity's watchful gaze. You sit, the wood warm and textured like aged skin. And the trial unfolds in visions, flashes of the Thunderbird's lodge, eclipses blotting the sky, cursed relics like thunderstones demanding blood price. The guardian tests through this communion, its quirky rules surfacing the hollow trunk's inner walls. Lined with quartz crystals that chime softly when your heartbeat aligns, but anomalously, they shatter echoes of past failures. Replaying the cries of heroes who broke taboos, a bizarre soundscape of fractured oaths that teaches without words. Hymnal fragments rise in the glade's hush, breathe with the green, and the wings unfold, falter, and roots claim the bold. The fog swirls thicker, carrying the damp cedar's embrace, and you synchronize fully now, your pulse merging with the mazes. Unlocking memories of the secret fragments of the Thunderbird's essence, star omens tilting in approval. In this pantheon, the cedar Manitou serves as fate weaver for island trials. Its function to escalate choices, yield a personal taboo like the urge to speak the forbidden name and gain passage, resist and wander eternally in loops. Sensory details layer the crystals. Chime like iron in miniature, the fog's chill yielding to the trunks. Warmth, and the faint ring of copper from embedded amulets in the wood relics of ancient crafts, where heroes forged boons from lake-sourced metals. The vision peaks, showing the cave ahead where the singing thunderstone lies. But the guardian's test lingers, demanding one final harmony, a silent vow to carry the cost scars of isolation, traded whispers for the village's protection. You rise, the labyrinth exhaling you, toward an outer path, the palisades parting like welcoming arms. The breathing way now a companion rhythm in your chest. Ancient mysteries breathe in these cedar veins, where deities test the hero's mettle through living mazes, promising divine encounters at the price of inner alignment, much like the labyrinthine quests that define the god's favor in enduring legends. But the question that remained was, as the fog lifted slightly to reveal the cave's shadowed mouth amid the trees, would your synchronized heart unlock the Thunderstone's song, or echo only the guardian's unrelenting demand for flawless silence? The cedar labyrinth exhales you onto a narrow ledge where the island's spine rises sharper, the fog thinning to wisps that trail like forgotten oaths as you approach the cave's shadowed maw. The entrance yawns from a sheer cliff face framed by jagged basalt, veined with quartz that glints like the Thunderbird's distant eyes, and you pause at its threshold, the guardian's breathing rhythm still echoing in your chest like a half-resolved drum. The air shifts here, cooler and heavier, carrying the mineral temps of deep earth mingled with the faint, acrid bite of ozone, as if the storm from Agawa has seeped into the rock itself. In the Anishinaabe tradition, such caves are wombs of the Monitu's, places where heroes delve for artifacts that bridge the ordinary world to the divine, echoing the ancient mysteries where deities hide their power in stone and metal, much like the forges of Hephaestus in Greek mythology or the dwarven smithies and Norse legends that birthed Thor's hammer, you step inside, the cave swallowing the morning light behind you, leaving only the dim glow of phosphorescent lichen clinging to the walls like star omens etched in green. The floor slopes downward, slick with moisture that beads from the ceiling in slow drips, each one echoing like a heartbeat deferred. And your moccasins find purchase on uneven slabs worn smooth by eons of water's patient carving. Sensory creep envelops you immediately, the walls slick with cold sweat, a condensation that chills your palms when you steady yourself against them, is tasting of salt and iron on your tongue as you brush a droplet away. The air hums faintly at the edge of hearing, a subtle vibration that resonates with the reed flute in your pouch, its warmth flaring in response to the cave's hidden pulse, pulling you deeper into the through line of your quest, the Thunderstone, promised relic that will sing the path to Nanabozo's games. Deeper in, the passage narrows to a crawl, forcing you onto hands and knees through a tunnel where the rock presses close, its texture rough and unyielding, scraped by your elbows as if testing your resolve. The taboo of this delve surfaces unbidden, no light brought from without. For flames summon the cave's shadows to life, twisting them into threshold guardians that bar the way. Instead, you navigate by touch in the flute's guiding heat, honoring the silence that the labyrinth demanded. A low chamber opens before you, vast and vaulted, its floor littered with boulders polished to a sheen by underground streams that trickle from fissures, their flow a soft murmur like whispered hymns to the deities below. In the center, atop a natural pedestal of fused quartz, lies the copper Thunderstone, a fist-sized nodule, its surface a mottled patina of verdigris and raw metal, veined with quartz crystals that catch the faint light filtering from a ceiling vent, humming with latent power. You approach slowly, heart sinking once more to the island's breath, now amplified in the cave's confines, and extend a trembling hand toward the stone. The moment your fingers brush it, the singing begins. Not a loud aria, but an ethereal tone at the edge of hearing rising, when your hand shakes with the thrill of contact, a pure note like wind through sacred flutes layered with overtones that vibrate in your teeth. This Thunderstone, forged in the Thunderbird's own tempests, is no mere rock. In Native American lore, such artifacts are skyfallen boons, remnants of the Anemoki's battles that embed in the earth, waiting for heroes to claim them as keys to divine lodges. A historical fact weaves into the moment, recalled from the elders' tales. In the 1840s, during the mineral surveys of the Upper Peninsula, geologists like those from the U.S. Geological Survey unearthed similar copper nodules near Lake Superior's shores, which local Ojibwe guides identified as thunderstones, attributing their formation to lightning strikes in ancient storms, a blend of science and legend that preserved the people's knowledge of the land's metallic riches amid the copper mining boom, where such finds fueled both industry and spiritual reverence. The stone's song modulates with your touch, the quirky detail of its mythic nature revealing itself. Its bizarre temperament lies in the anomalous function tied to the wielder's emotions when fear shakes the hand. It sings a dirge of low moans that summon echoes of past failures, enforcing a taboo against doubt, for prolonged trembling causes the copper to heat, blistering the skin as blood price. But in steady resolve, it harmonizes with the holder's oath, weaving the tones into a map of star omens and river paths. You grip it firmly, the metal cool at first, then warming to match your palm's heat. And the singing swells into a melody that threads the cave's sonic textures, the drips now sinking like percussion. The quartz walls amplifying the notes into a chamber hymn, and the distant rumble of lake waves above, iron and iron in harmony with the Thunderbird's wings. A confessional rises in the intimacy of the find. Thunder's child, your voice steadies what the depths have taken. The stone responds its song lightning, and visions flicker in the vibrations glimpses of the stormcliff where the oath awaits. Eclipses marking the duel with Mishapishu and the trickster Nanabozo lurking in reed beds, his laughter a counterpoint to the stone's purity. In this pantheon, the Thunderstone serves as Oathkeeper's relic, its rule to bind the user in consequential choices, claim it fully, and trade a sense of warmth for storm endurance, a scar of perpetual chill, release it, and lose the quest's momentum. You tuck it into your pouch beside the reed flute, the two artifacts humming in duet, their combined warmth a beacon against the cave's cold sweat. and feel the psychological tension ease into epic resolve, the prophecy from Agawa, now tangible. The Sturgeon's Crossing rewarded with this singing guide. Ritual detail unfolds as you honor the find. You prick your thumb once more on a sharp quartz edge, letting blood anoint the stone's base. Sealing the boon with a sacred bargain whispered to the chamber's shadows. Sing for the village's skies. I bear your chill. The drops sizzle faintly on the pedestal, releasing a scent of heated metal and earth, like incense from a temple forge, and the song quiets to a contented hum, embedding in your bones like the labyrinth's breath. Sensory creep lingers, the wall's moisture now feels like the cave's approving tears. The air rings with residual overtones that fade into the trickling streams, and the stone's weight pulls you upward, toward the surface where reedbeds await Nanabozo's riddles. Hymnal fragments echo in the melody, stone sings when skies weep, heroes listen without word. Emerging from the cave, the island's fog has lifted further, revealing the canoe bobbing patiently below. And you descend the ledge with the thunderstones, hum a constant companion, song a leitmotif of the trials ahead, labyrinths navigated, secrets carried, deities' feuds drawing nearer. Ancient mysteries pulse in these slick depths, where artifacts like the Thunderstone demand costs for their miracles, scarring the bearer with traded comforts to forge unbreakable oaths, much like the relics that define heroes in enduring legends across the world's pantheons. But the question that remained was, as the stone's faint song carried you back to the water's edge and the reed beds shimmered in the distance, would Nanabozo's echoes unravel the Thunderstone's melody, or twist it into riddles that bite deeper than any taboo? The canoe slips from the island's shadow into the reed beds that fringe the lake's eastern bays, their tall stalks swaying in unison like a congregation of whispering elders, their hollow stems rattling softly in the afternoon breeze. The Thunderstone's hum vibrates against your side, a steady undercurrent to the water's lap against the hull, as if the artifact anticipates the trickster's approach. Its song weaving through the reeds susurrus like a counterpoint melody. You paddle with measured strokes, the ash blade dipping into the shallows where the lake bed rises in muddy humps dotted with wild iris, their purple blooms nodding as if privy to the prophecies unfolding. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, these reed beds are the domain of Nanabozo, the great trickster hero, a shapeshifter who embodies the chaos within order, testing mortals with games that mirror the deity's feuds, sky versus depths, oath versus whim, much like the capricious Loki in Norse legends, or Hermes' sly bargains in Greek mythology, where ancient mysteries turn the ordinary into labyrinths of wit. The reeds thicken, enclosing the canoe in a green tunnel where sunlight fractures into golden shards that dance on the water. And you feel the through-line pull sharper, the Sturgeon's Crossing, and the cave's find now propelling you into this playful trial. A soft laughter bubbles up from the depths, not mocking, but inviting, like the chuckle of a loon gone mischievous. Rising from the mudflats where bubbles break the surface in lazy pops, Nanabozo appears, gradually materializing from the reeds like mist coalescing into form. First a flicker of movement, then a figure crouched on a hummock. His skin, the warm brown of river clay clad in a patchwork of feathers, and hides that shift colors with the light traven black to fox red. His eyes gleam with amusement, twin sparks of curiosity, and he waves a hand adorned with copper rings that chime faintly, echoing the Thunderstone's hum in ironic harmony.
Tell me.
You ground the canoe on the soft bank, stepping into the ankle-deep muck that sucks at your moccasins with a wet kiss, and approach warily, the reed flute's warmth flaring as if sensing kinship in the trickster's craft. Nanabozo straightens, taller now, his laughter softening to a murmur that rustles the stalks around you, turning the air alive with subtle motion. "Wanderer of black waters," he says, his voice a lilting cadence that builds suspense like the slow uncoiling of a riddle. "The Thunderbird's eye tilts for you, but games precede the storm. What oath brings you to my beds where footprints flee their maker?" He gestures to the mud, and you glance down your tracks, fresh and deep, now blur in reverse, sinking backward as if time itself retreats. A motif of the labyrinth's twists replayed in earth. Sensory details layered the encounter. The reedy rustle like whispered taboos, the mud's cool grip yielding to warmth underfoot, and the faint fishy scent rising from the shallows laced with the trickster's own earthy musk like damp cedar after rain. The game begins without fanfare. Nanabozo, circling you with steps that leave no print. His presence, a psychological intrigue that probes your doubts like hooks in still water. He poses the first riddle, voice soft as reed song. I swim without fins, bite without teeth. What am I? You hesitate, the thunderstone humming faster, its song a clue woven into the secret from Bidwid, and answer doubt. He laughs again, the sound turning your spoken word into an echo that bounces from stalk to stalk, amplifying until it bites like fish nipping at your calves in the shallow, sharp pinches that fade to itches, enforcing the game's cost. In this tradition, Nanabozo's role as trickster escalates trials with consequential whims. His game's a threshold to deeper boons, where heroes trade certainties for insights into the deity's grand scope. A local legend emerges in his telling, drawn from Ojibwe stories passed through generations in the late 1700s. During the fur trade's peak, when voyageurs plied these bays, Nanabozo was said to have tricked a greedy trader near Michipecaton Island by reversing his canoe's path in reed beds, forcing him to abandon iron traps, a historical echo in trader journals like those of Alexander Henry, where such spirit pranks were blamed for lost cargoes, preserving the land's balance against exploitation by reminding interlopers of the Monitu's playful justice. Nanabozo's temperament reveals its quirky side as the riddles multiply. He delights in echoes, his anomalous function to twist spoken truths into mirrors that reflect the speaker's hidden fears. But bizarrely, his laughter carries a rule answer true, and the echo heals his warmth spreading from the bite. Falter, and it lingers as a chill scar. A taboo against evasion, Four Lies summons swarms of illusory mosquitoes that drain not blood but fragments of resolve. You feel it now, the second riddle forming on his lips. Wings of iron guard the sky, but what devours the Oathkeeper's cry? The thunderstone pulses, syncing with your pulse, and you reply. The underwater panther's jealousy, the words echoing back not as bite, but as a soothing vibration that eases the mud's pull. He nods, footprints reversing yours further, leading you in a looping path through the beds, where sacred bargains hide in the muck small relics like feather-woven charms half-buried, humming with star-omen power. A confessional slips in the game's intimacy. Trickster, your bites unearth what the silence buries. I ready for the panther's rise? Nanabozo pauses, his eyes narrowing with genuine mirth, and tosses you a reed-woven ball that unravels in your hand into a map of echo lines that shift like water, marking the path to the surface where the panther awaits. The sonic textures deepen, his laughter layering with the reed's rattle like iron in play. The mud squelch punctuating each reversed step, and the distant loon call answering his riddles as if part of the chorus. Hymnal fragments weave in, echoes turn, but truth endures. Fish bites fade where heroes stir, the game escalates. Doubts transforming into riddles that probe the prophecy, the village's droughts as the panther's grudge. The Thunderbird's oath as a wing beat away, and you navigate the loops, the trickster's presence a fate weaver spinning chaos into guidance. Deeper into the beds, the water rises to your knees, and Nanabozo's final riddle bites sharpest. What secret sings in stone and reed but breaks if named indeed? The thunderstone and flute duet in your pouch, their hum a lifeline, and you answer the Thunderbird's essence. The echo returning as a warm breeze that parts the reeds ahead, revealing open water, where the panther's shadow stirs faintly below. He bows, laughter fading to a whisper, and vanishes into the stalks, leaving you with the scar of a minor doubt, a fleeting uncertainty about the village's ires traded for the clarity of his games. In this mythic logic, Nanabozo's interventions carry costs like owed silences, ensuring the hero's path aligns with the deity's balance, scarred by whims but enlightened. Sensory creep lingers, the mud now sweats a phosphorescent glow in his wake. The reeds whisper proverbs like, doubts reversed lead to skies reversed, and the water's chill hints at the panther's approach. You reclaim the canoe, paddling free of the beds with the map's echoes guiding your strokes. The trickster's riddles a leitmotif echoing the earlier omens, the starry tilt, the cave's song propelling you toward the eclipse's bruise. Ancient mysteries thrive in these reed-veiled games, where tricksters like Nanabozo bite to teach, turning heroes' footsteps backward only to launch them toward divine confrontations. Their costs woven into the fabric of enduring legends. But the question that remained was, as the reed beds receded and the lake's depths stirred with green fire. Would the panther's surfacing honor the trickster's echoes, or drag the riddles into a feud that swallowed your hard-won truths? The canoe cuts through the open water as the reed beds fade into a distant fringe, their whispers yielding to the lake's broader murmur, but the depths below now stir with an insistent churn that rocks the hull in subtle undulations. The thunderstone's hum quickens in your pouch, syncing with the reed flutes. Warmth like a duet of warning as the surface ahead ripples, unnaturally bubbles rising in erratic clusters that break with a faint hiss, carrying the scent of riverweed and silt from abyssal currents. You paddle harder, the ash blade pulling against the thickening resistance, feeling the through line of your journey converge here in Superior as heart. The trickster-esque echoes still linger in the air like half-solved riddles, but now the underwater. Mishu asserts its claim, the old feud with the Thunderbird coiling upward like a serpent from the black. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, Mishipeshu is the water's fierce guardian, a horned feline spirit whose domain clashes eternally with the skybird's dominion. Mirroring the ancient mysteries where deities feud over balance earth and water against air and storm, much like the rivalries of Poseidon and Athena in Greek mythology, or the serpentine Jarmangander encircling Midgard in Norse legends. The water boils suddenly, a vortex forming mere paces ahead, and you ship the paddle, gripping the gunwales as the canoe circles the disturbance, drawn inexorably into its pull. The mist from earlier returns, colder now, veiling the horizon where the sun hangs low, casting the lake in shades of emerald and shadow that evoke the panther's eyes. Sensory creep intensifies. The surface sweats an oily sheen, droplets beating on the hull like fevered perspiration, and a low growl rumbles from below. Not thunder, but a guttural purr that vibrates through the wood into your spine, laced with the iron tang of deep minerals rising to the air. You lean over the side, peering into the churning depths, and there it surfaces. The underwater panther breaches with a surge that sends spray arcing like a blood price offered to the sky, its massive form. Half-emerging whiskers of tangled riverweed trailing from a maw lined with spines like copper thorns, eyes blazing green fire that illuminates the water in flickering halos. Mishipeshu hangs there, suspended in the swell, its scaled hide a mosaic of iridescent blue-black, etched with the scars of ancient, clashes gouges from Thunderbird talons that never fully heal, pulsing with the lake's own veins. The panther's head alone dwarfs the canoe, nostrils flaring to release plumes of steam that carry the damp cedar scent of submerged forests. It fixes those fiery eyes on you, naming the old feud in a voice like grinding stones, resonant and unyielding. Sky Thief's wings eclipse the deep. But the Thunderbird will never forget the oath broken when waters were chained. The words hang in the mist, a sacred bargain invoked from the creation times, when the Anamaiki drove Mishipeshu below the waves with bolts of sky iron, binding the panther in a labyrinth of currents as penance for flooding the shores, a feud that echoes through seasons, eclipses marking their truces and star omens, signaling renewals. You feel the psychological tension spike the epic cadence of the moment, pressing like the panther's gaze heroes in these. Lore face such guardians not with weapons but with the silence of endured costs, trading fears for glimpses of the divine's fractured harmony. The panther circles the canoe lazily, its tail a whip of weed and fin slapping the water with a resonant crack that echoes Orion, sending shockwaves that tilt your world. Whiskers brush the hull, cool and slick, leaving trails of phosphorescent slime that glow faintly. You honor the taboo of this surfacing, no flight, no cry. For such breaks, summon whirlpools that drag the unworthy to the depths, enforcing the deity's temperament fierce yet bound by the old pacts, a quirk revealed in its anomalous function. The green fire in its eyes not only pierces illusions, but projects visions of the feud his history, bizarrely selective, showing only to those who bear a relic like your Thunderstone, but demanding a blood price in return, a drop from the heart's vein, not the thumb, to witness without shattering under the truth's weight. A local legend weaves into the encounter from the oral traditions of the Ojibwe around pictured rocks. In the 1600s, during early French explorations of the Upper Lakes, missionaries recorded tales from elders near Minusing Bay of Mishipeshu, rising during a solar eclipse to challenge a band's vision quest. the panther's fire guiding them to hidden copper deposits instead of devouring them, a historical blend in Jesuit accounts where such sightings preserved knowledge of the land's resources. Balancing spiritual warnings with the practical boons that sustained communities amid European contact and the fur trade upheavals, you extend the thunderstone from your pouch, its song rising in defiance to the panther's growl, and the eyes flare brighter. Projecting the vision, you see the ancient clash Thunderbird plummeting from storm clouds. Wings spanning horizons, claws raking the waves to unearth the panther's form from a submerged cave. The oath forged in blood and lightning where Mishapishu swore silence for the deep's freedom. The grudge simmers eternal. Eclipses as their battlegrounds. River crossings as contested thresholds. The images burn into your mind, the stone heating in your grip as the price exacts a sharp pang in your chest. Blood welling unbidden from a shallow cut that appears like fate's quill. Dripping into the water where it swirls crimson, drawing a nod from the panther's massive head. The skybird forgets nothing. It rumbles again, whiskers twitching like fate weavers sensing your roll. For the broken chain floods the rice, drowns the villages. Your oath mends or mirrors it. The sonic textures layer the right, the panther est per harmonizing with the thunderstone. Hum into a discordant hymn wave slapping the hull like oathbreakers. Drums in the mists hush broken by the faint toll of submerged copper bells, relics from the feud's dawn. Confessional rises against the deity's gaze. Guardian of depths, your fire shows what silence hides must. I bridge this feud for the rains to fall. Mishapeshu submerges slightly, eyes level with yours, the green fire dimming to embers that reflect the starry tilt from nights before. And exhales a breath of cool vapor, scented with salt incense, acknowledging without answer. In this mythic logic, the panther serves as underworld guide, twisted by rivalry its rule to escalate choices. Align with the deep's grudge and gain submerged paths to power. Honor the Thunderbird's claim and trade a memory of the lake's peace for storm vigilance, a scar of restless waves and dreams. The vision fades. The panther's form sinking back into the vortex with a final swirl that steadies your canoe. Leaving the surface calm but charged, the blood's crimson fading like an eclipse's edge. Hymnal fragments echo in the settling waves. Fire below names the sky's debt. Heroes pay in vain's quiet regret. Sensory creep persists, the water now tastes metallic on your lips from the spray. The hull creaks with residual vibration, and the air rings with the panther's parting growl, a leitmotif of the feud's unyielding pull. You resume paddling, the artifact's duet softening to a lull. The through line propelling you toward the storm cliff, where the eclipse will bruise the sky. The old grudge named and witnessed, its costs etched in your flesh and mind. Ancient mysteries surface in these fiery depths, where deities like Mishopashu name feuds to test the hero's oaths, demanding blood and vision at the price of scarred loyalties, weaving the balance of worlds in eternal consequential tension. But the question that remained was, as the sun dipped lower and the sky began to darken with the eclipse's approach, would the Thunderbird honor this naming of the feud, or descend in wings that shattered the fragile truce your blood had sealed? The canoe drifts on the settling waves as the midday sun falters its light, bleeding into a bruised pallor that spreads across the sky. Like an old wound reopening, the eclipse's shadow creeping from the horizon to swallow Superior's gleam. You trail your fingers in the water, still tasting the metallic bite from Mishapishu's parting spray. The panther's green fire lingering in your vision like embers refusing to die. While the thunderstones hum and the reed flute's warmth pulse in tandem, urging you toward the storm cliff that rises jagged in the distance. The lake's surface mirrors the darkening vault above, ripples folding time around your breath as if the feud's naming has accelerated the celestial rite, pulling the ordinary midday into the divinest eclipse motif in ancient mysteries where heroes witness such darkenings as thresholds to oaths, echoing the solar obscurations that marked battles between gods in Greek mythology or the Ragnarok omens in Norse legends, where the sun's flight signaled the gods' unraveling pacts. The air thickens with a sudden hush, birds falling silent might call their wings stilled, as if caught in the shadow's grasp, and you feel the psychological tension coil like the panther's tail, the epic cadence of your journey now. Hinging on this bruised sky, you paddle steadily toward the cliff, its basalt face etched with natural ledges that resemble the pictographs from Agawa. veins of quartz catching the fading light like frozen lightning. Sensory creep builds relentlessly, the water's chill deepens to a bone-numbing cold, as if the lake sweats. The eclipse's dread and a faint, acrid scent of ozone mingles with the damp cedar carried on the wind, while the whole creaks under an invisible weight, iron and echoes from the depths, sinking with the thunderstone's rising song. The eclipse progresses, the sun's corona flaring briefly in a ring of fire that casts the world in sepia tones, and then the white sky deer appears, spectral form leaping along the clouds, its antlers branching like lightning rods, body translucent as mist-woven hide, fleeing westward as if pursued by the Thunderbird's unseen shadow. The deer's flight folds time around you. Each bound compressing moments, the canoe seems to surge forward without effort. The cliff looming closer in heartbeats that stretch and contract, your breath sinking to the creature's ethereal gait. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, the sky deer is a messenger of eclipses. A fate weaver born from the union of star omens and river crossings, its role to herald the balance between sky and depths during these celestial truces, guiding heroes through the shadows' trials where sacred bargains are reforged. You watch, transfixed, as it vaults from cloud to cloud, leaving trails of silvery vapor that twist like cursed relics in the air. Its eyes pale orbs of moonlight glancing back once, locking with yours in a silent acknowledgement of the prophecy. Eclipse's bruise deepens, midday plunging into twilight's grip. And the deer's presence escalates the motifs. This is no mere omen but a living bridge. Its flight echoing the starry tilt from nights before, the panther's grudge now visualized in the chase that darkens the heavens. A local legend surfaces in the hush. It's drawn from the oral histories of the Ojibwe elders along the North Shore in the 1860s. During a total eclipse visible over Lake Superior, documented in astronomical records from the U.S. Naval Observatory as part of the path that crossed the Great Lakes and Anishinaabe near the Apostle Islands, claimed the sky deer appeared to a young hunter, fleeing before a storm that followed, guiding his people to sheltered coves and averting a flood. This tale preserved in community gatherings amid the logging booms that scarred the lands blended the event's historical awe with spiritual guidance, reminding the people of the Monitous interventions during times of rapid change when railroads and treaties threatened the old ways. The deer's bounds quicken, time folding tighter, your childhood memory of a village eclipse rite flashes unbidden, sweetgrass smoke and drum skins under a shadowed sky. Traded now for this heightened vigilance as the scar from the panther's vision throbs anew. You beach the canoe on the cliff's base, scrambling up the slick path where handholds of root and rock offer precarious purchase, the thunderstone's song swelling to counter the deer's distant bleat, a high-keening note that pierces the eclipse's veil. The quirky detail of the sky deer reveals itself in its anomalous function. Its antlers, not solid but woven from condensed starlight, possess a bizarre temperament that bends time locally during flight, allowing witnesses to glimpse future echoes of their oaths, but with a taboo against pursuit. Chase it, and the folds snap back, aging the hunter by seasons in an instant. Observe in stillness, and it gifts a fragment of swiftness, a boon at the cost of a whispered secret to the wind. You halt midway up the cliff, honoring the rule, and the deer pauses in its arc, antlers glowing faintly, projecting a vision. You on the storm ledge, the Thunderbird descending amid the eclipse's peak, the panther's whiskers rising from the waves below, the old feud converging in a clash where your blood price tips the scales. The eclipse reaches totality now, the sky a profound black pierced by the corona's ethereal glow, and the deer's flight slows, circling the cliff's summit like a halo. Time folding around your breath into elongated inhales that reveal layered moments, the village's distant smoke curling, straighter under promised rains, the reed beds where Nanabozo's laughter echoes faintly, the cave's thunderstone singing in harmony with celestial silence. Sensory details immerse the rite. The cliff stone sweats icy rivulets that taste of salt incense on your lips. The air rings with the deer's soft hoof falls on clouds, muffled as if through wool, and the lake below laps in reversed rhythm waves, pulling inward like the panther's retreating grudge. Confessional escapes in the shadow's intimacy. Deer of skies, your flight bends. What the depths have scarred does my oath chase or calm this eclipse? The creature tilts its head, antlers shimmering, and the vision sharpens. The Thunderbird's oath demands your presence at the lodge, but the deer's path hints at a cost-traded time, a day of your life, folded away for the clarity to endure the descent. Hymnal fragments rise in the totality's hush. Deer flees the bruise. Time whispers the truce. Heroes stand where shadows fuse. The sky deer bounds once more, fleeing along the clouds toward the west. Its trail dissolving as the eclipse begins to wane. Light seeping back in hesitant fingers that illuminate the cliff's top, a flat ledge, ringed by wind-sculpted pines. Their needles whispering proverbs like when eclipses fold, oaths unfold. In this mythic logic, the deer serves as oracle seer for celestial trials. Its rule to escalate the hero's choices, embrace the timefold, and gain foresight into the storm duel. Resist and wander the cliff in looped moments until surrender. The artifacts in your pouch flare warmer, the thunderstone's song now laced with the deer's keening. A leitmotif braiding the journey's motifs, eclipses as battlegrounds, star omens as guides, the panther's naming echoed in the deer's flight. You crest the ledge, the eclipse's edge, brightening the world anew. But the folded time lingers in your veins, a subtle scar where breaths feel elongated. The deer-esque gift of swiftness, propelling your steps toward the cliff's heart where the storm lodge awaits. Ancient mysteries bruise the skies in these deer-led flights, where deities like the Thunderbird use eclipses to test heroes. Endurance folding time and oaths into costs that scar the soul, weaving the feuds of depths and heights into a balance only the resolute can claim. But the question that remained was, as the sun's light returned and the storm clouds gathered in the deer's wake, would the Thunderbirds descent seal your oath in wings of promise, or unleash a tempest that folded your silence into the eclipse's unforgiving dark? The eclipse's wane leaves the storm cliff bathed in a fragile light, the sun's return casting long shadows from the wind-sculpted pines that ring the ledge like silent sentinels, their needles whispering. Remnants of the sky deer's flight as you stand at the precipice's heart. The lake below churns restlessly, Superior's waters reflecting the gathering clouds that boil from the west like the Thunderbird's brewing ire. The air thick with the electric temps of impending rain, and the faint metallic ring of iron carried on gusts that tug at your cloak. The folded time from the deer's bound lingers in your limbs, breaths still elongated, as if the eclipse has etched its bruise into your rhythm, propelling you here to this sacred outcrop, where heroes of old faced the Anamike, the sky deity, whose oaths bind the seasons and feuds. In the Anishinaabe tradition, such storm cliffs' natural altars along Superior's rugged north shore serve as the divine's perch. Places where sacred bargains are struck amid thunder's cadence, echoing the ancient mysteries where heroes commune with deities at the edge of worlds. Much like Zeus's thunderous decrees from Mount Olympus in Greek mythology or Odin's windswept convocations in Norse legends, you plant your feet on the weathered stone, the cliff surface etched with faint grooves like the talons of past visitors, and unclasp your pouch to hold the thunderstone aloft, its song swelling in defiance of the wind harmonizing with the reed flute's warmth that now pulses like a second heartbeat. The psychological tension crests as the clouds thicken, blotting the celestial signs, the Thunderbirds. A constellation winking faintly through rifts, a callback to the starry tilt that marked your Valand. You sense the through-line-esque culmination, Panther-esque named grudge, Nanabozo's riddles, the sturgeon's thrumming, all converging in this descent, where the oath will seal or shatter the prophecy for your village's sake. Sensory details assail you, the stone beneath your moccasins, sweats a chill moisture that seeps through the leather. Tasting of salt incense when you kneel to press your palm flat. The wind howls through the pines with a sonic texture like iron and iron wing beats approaching from the storm-esque core. Layered with the distant crash of waves against the base, Oathbreaker's drums echoing the costs ahead. The descent begins with a rumble that vibrates the cliff itself, not thunder, but the flap of vast wings spanning the horizon, the Thunderbird materializing from the cloud's heart like a living eclipse reborn. Its form dwarfs the ledge feathers of midnight blue, edged in lightning white, eyes twin bolts of yellow fire that pierce the gathering dark. Talons curved like obsidian sickles glinting with the patina of sky-forged iron. It perches on the cliff's far edge with a ground-shaking thud. The iron scrape of wings folding against its sides resonating through your bones, releasing a scent of ozone and scorched cedar that fills the air like temple incense. The deity's presence escalates the epic scope, its temperament majestic, yet measured. A calm eye in the storm it commands, offering not wrath but the oath that heroes crave. its voice a rolling boom softened to conversational thunder, bearer of stone and secret. The sky deer's flight has folded time to this moment, the panther's depths stir. But my wings shield the ricelands if you swear the pact. The words carry the weight of sacred bargains, motifs of blood price and cursed relics woven into the offer, the Thunderbird's gaze locking with yours, unblinking. As if reading the silence you've guarded since Agawa, you step forward, the thunderstone humming in approval, its song blending with the deity's wing beats into a hymnal fragment that rises unbidden. Wings descend, oaths ascend. Skies remember what depths pretend. The oath unfolds in ritual detail, the Thunderbird extends a single feather plucked from its breast with a flash that illuminates the cliff, like middays return the plume. Copper-veined and humming with anomalous power, its texture soft as down yet rigid as forged metal. This is the artifact of the pact, quirky in its bizarre rule. It binds only two memories unchosen. The oaths cost a traded recollection plucked by the deity-ess. When perhaps a grandmother's laugh, or the taste of wild berries by the pick vanishing like mist to fuel the miracle of balanced storms. The taboo surfaces in the offering, grasp it without blood price, and the feather withers to ash. Anoint it first, and it integrates, scarring the bearer with an ode silence that mutes joy's echoes forever. In this pantheon, the Thunderbird embodies the Oath Keeper Supreme. Its function to escalate trials with consequential boons protection for the village's droughts turned to rains. But at the price of personal voids, ensuring heroes bear the deity's feuds in their souls. A local legend threads into the rite, recalled from the elders' fireside tales in the 1890s. During a severe storm season that ravaged the Apostle Islands documented in weather logs from the U.S., Weather Bureau as gales that sank fishing boats and flooded shores in. Ojibwe fishermen on a similar cliff claimed the Thunderbird descended during an eclipse-like squall, offering a feather oath that spared his band, guiding their nets to bountiful hauls thereafter. This story, shared in community gatherings amid the lumber industry's encroachment, preserved the spiritual resilience of the people. Blending historical tempest with the momentous interventions to affirm the land's sacred covenants against modern disruptions, you prick your thumb on the feather's quill, the sting deeper, now drawing blood that wells crimson and drips onto the plume, sizzling faintly as it absorbs, sealing the bargain with a flare of light that banishes the clouds for a breath. The Thunderbird nods, wings rustling like distant thunder, and the oath takes hold. By this blood, my storms turn gentle for your kin. Eclipses yield to light, but the memory I claim is the one that anchored you gone, like a star untwinkled. You feel it then, a sudden hollowness, the face of Nookamis in the shaking tent, her eyes. Warmth traded without choice, a scar blooming behind your thoughts where reassurance once lived, the cost manifesting as a quiet ache that the deity's fire cannot touch. The feather integrates into your cloak, humming softly, its anomalous function now active. It grants glimpses of storm lodges and dreams, but bizarrely enforces the silence by muffling your voice in moments of grief, a temperament that tempers power with humility. Sensory creep heightens, the cliff's stone warms under the flare, then chills as the clouds reclaim. Sky, the wind carrying the iron tang of wings unfurling, and the lake below responds with a hush wave stilling, as if honoring the pact. A confessional slips in the deity's shadow. Great Anna Mikey, your oath scars deeper than the panther's fire. What memories lost will steady my path? The Thunderbird tilts its head, eyes flashing once, and rumbles, the one that forgets teaches flight, for launching skyward with a wing beat that shakes the ledge, iron in iron, resounding like a proverb carved in thunder. Oaths live in the cut. Memories mend what skies shut. The deity ascends into the clouds, leaving the cliff trembling. The feathers hum, a constant companion that pulses with the ascent's rhythm, propelling you toward the storm lodge's veiled heights. The oath seals the through line, the village's protection woven into the skybird's domain. But the traded memory echoes the earlier motifs, eclipses as costs, star omens as witnesses, the panther's grudge now balanced by your silence. Ancient mysteries descend on these storm perches, where deities like the Thunderbird offer oaths that heroes cannot refuse, costing unchosen pieces of the self to forge miracles amid the feuds of heights and depths, their scars a testament to the enduring balance of worlds. But the question that remained was, as the clouds parted to reveal the lodge's misty spire and the featherous hum urged you upward. Would this unchosen loss reveal the ascent's hidden trials, or leave you climbing with a heart half unmoored from the anchors below? The Thunderbird's wingbeat fades into the roiling clouds as you turn from the ledge's edge, the feather integrated into your cloak now humming with a subtle vibration that tugs at your steps, urging you upward along a faint path that spirals the cliff's inner face like a vein of quartz leading to the heavens. The traded memories scarred throbs, hollow where Nookamis's gaze once steadied, you're now an unmoored drift that the wind amplifies, but the oath's weight anchors your resolve, propelling you into this ascent where the Storm Lodge awaits a realm woven from the Anemoki's domain in Native American lore. The path narrows to a goat track of cracked stone and exposed roots, slick with the first spatters of rain that the clouds disgorge. Each drop heavy as a blood price, stinging your skin like the panther's distant grudge. You climb with deliberate grips, fingers finding purchase in the basalt's rough texture, the air thinning to a crisp bite that carries the cedar scent of hidden groves below, now mingled with the ozone, prelude to the lodge's embrace. Building suspense in the methodical rhythm of breath and footfall, higher you ascend, the cliff falling away to reveal Superior's vast mirror far below. Waves now capped with white as the storm gathers momentum, a visual echo of the eclipse's bruise that folded time around your vows. The clouds envelop you gradually first, as wisps that brush your face like fate weaver's threads, then thickening into a fog that muffles the world, turning the path into a tunnel of swirling gray scented with damp cedar and the faint resinous smoke of unseen fires. Sensory creep deepens the stone under your moccasins, sweats a perpetual mist that chills your soles, seeping upward like the lake's insistent pull. And the wind whispers through the feathers of your cloak with irony-earned sighs, the integrated plume responding by warming sporadically. Its anomalous function, a quirky temperament, it glows faintly in the cloud's heart, illuminating handholds like star omens, but bizarrely enforces a taboo against haste. If you rush, the light dims to black, forcing a halt until your pulse steadies, a rule that scars the climber with moments of profound isolation, trading speed for the lodge's hidden laws. The ascent spirals tighter, roots twisting into natural stairs that creak under your weight. You enter the Storm Lodge proper, a vast chamber suspended in the cloud's folds, its walls not stone but billowing vapors laced with cedar boughs that float like living tapestries, their needles releasing bursts of sharp fragrance with each gust. The floor is a platform of woven mist and thunder-forged iron, cool and unyielding, etched with glowing runes that pulse like the Thunderbird's eye, and the air hums with latent power, a sonic texture of distant rumbles harmonizing with the feathers hum in your cloak. Here amid the epic scope of the deity's sanctum, each bolt hammers a law onto the air-lightning cracks outside the vapor walls. Not random, but deliberate. Illuminating edicts carved in the clouds, spirals of Thunderbird wings mandating balance, coils of panther tails forbidding unchecked floods, their flashes searing the truths into your vision like temple inscriptions on obsidian. You stand at the center, the lodge's breath syncing with your own, the psychological tension manifesting as a pull between the oath's promise and the scar's emptiness, where the unchosen memory's loss echoes the lodge's vast solitude. A bolt strikes near, its thunder hammering the first law, oaths bind sky too deep. Break them, and eclipses devour the light. The flash reveals a vision, the village's rice beds greening under gentle rains, your blood price manifesting as protection, but shadowed by the panther's whiskers stirring below. The feuds cost a recurring motif where star omens tilt in warning. Do nod, the cedar scent intensifying as bows drift closer, brushing your arms like the sturgeon's thrumming touch. And another bolt follows, etching the second law. Heroes trade not gold, but echoes of kin, miracles scar to remind. The traded memory flares in the light Nookamis's face, dissolving like mist. A hollow that the lodge amplifies, teaching the price of divine boons in Native American lore, where such a sense forged the soul through endured voids. A local legend weaves into the hammering in the 1700s. During the Ojibwe migrations across the Great Lakes, chronicled in oral histories and early colonial maps as the band westward push, amid Iroquois conflicts, an elder visionary climbed a similar storm cliff near the Sioux during a thunderous gale. entering a cloud lodge where lightning etched laws that guided the people's safe passage to new shores. A historical anchor in the resilience of Anishinaabe traditions against warfare and displacement, preserving the Manitus. Covenants through visionary rites that blended spiritual ascent with communal survival. The bolts quicken, each one a hammer blow that vibrates the platform, the air crackling with iron and iron resonance, as the third law illuminates. Silence owes the storm. Speak the secret, and wings withhold the calm. The reed flute in your pouch heats sharply, the forbidden name pressing against your tongue like a river stone, but you swallow it down, honoring the taboo. The feathers glow steady in your stance. In this coherent pantheon, the Storm Lodge serves as the Oathkeeper's forge. Its anomalous function to embed laws in the climber's bones through these bolts. Bizarrely selective, their truths only bind those marked by relics like your Thunderstone. But demand a counter-right. A drop of sweat or blood offered to the vapors, traded for the clarity to descend unscathed. You comply, pricking your palm on a protruding iron rune, the crimson bead dispersing into the cloud with a sizzle, sealing the laws as the lodge's walls contract gently. Cedar boughs forming arches overhead like a natural temple, their needles dripping essence that anoints your shoulders. A confessional rises in the lodge's intimacy. Voice low against the thunder's cadence. Animiki's hall. Your laws hammer what the depth's name does. This scar mend or merely echo the loss? The next bolt answers with a softer rumble, illuminating a hymnal fragment etched in vapor. Bolts carve the sworn. Cedars hold what storms have torn. The visions cascade now rever crossings under starlit truces. Labyrinths of fog where threshold guardians nod approval. The panther's green fire dimming under the oath's weight hand. You feel the epic through line solidify. The ascent weaving your personal costs into the deity's grand feuds. Where heroes emerge from cloud lodges with laws etched in their very rhythm. Sensory creep envelops the rite. The platform's iron warms, then chills with each strike, tasting metallic on the air like the panther's breath. The cedar's damp embrace sweating incense that clings to your skin. And the bolt's flashes leave after images of runes that dance in your periphery, leitmotifs of the journey's escalating trials. The hammering slows, the lodge expanding once more as the clouds part slightly, revealing glimpses of the cliff below. And the lake's restless churn, the feathers hum syncing with the final law, ascend with silence, descend with scars. The village drinks from your unvoiced wars. You stand taller, the laws now thrumming in your veins like the sturgeon's drum. The traded memories hollow, filled with purpose, though the scar persists as a reminder of the cost-sowed hush, traded joys for the miracles that will balance the skies. In these ancient mysteries, the Storm Lodge hammers, not just air, but the hero's core, forging resilience amid the deity's eternal tensions. Their bolts a bridge between ordinary ascents and divine imperatives. But the question that remained was as the last bolt faded and the cedar boughs parted to reveal the descents. A shadowed path with these hammered laws steady you through the trials of hunger and quiet, or demand silences so profound they silence the oath itself. The Storm Lodge's vapors part like a reluctant curtain. As you begin the descent, the hammered laws thrumming in your veins like embedded runes each step down the spiral path, a measured echo of the ascent's rhythm, the feather in your cloak pulsing warmer to light the slick stones below. The clouds thin, gradually releasing you into a drizzle that veils the cliff's face rain sheeting. Down in fine veils that blurred the lake's distant horizon into a silver smear, the air heavy with the petrichor of wetted earth and cedar, now laced with the salt temps rising from Superior's churned waves. The scar from the unchosen memory aches deeper in the damp a hollow where Nukamis's voice once soothed, but the oath's purpose steals you, propelling this trial where hunger, salt, and salt, and silence will measure your worth against the deity's unyielding scales. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such descents from storm perches test the hero's mettle through the elements' quiet disciplines. Ancient mysteries where the ordinary body's frailties become thresholds to divine endurance. Much like the Spartan rigors that forged warriors in Greek mythology, or the ascetic vigils of Odin in Norse legends. Hanging from Yggdrasil to claim runic wisdom. You find a natural alcove midway down the cliff, a shallow overhang of basalt, sheltered by overhanging pines, whose branches form a dripping canopy. their needles shedding water in rhythmic plinks that sync with the rain's patter on the stone ledge before you. The path halts here as if the cliff itself enforces the pause's sacred pause for the tests, where the lodge's laws demand reckoning before further trials. Hunger strikes first, a gnawing void in your belly sharpened by the pemmican's long exhaustion during the ascent. The drizzle offering no sustenance but teasing the thirst with its ceaseless fall. You settle on the damp ground, moccasins sinking into moss that cushions like faded red mats. Resist the pouch's temptation, honoring the taboo of this measure: no food until the silence breaks the rain spell. A rule woven from the Thunderbird's bolts, where indulgence unravels the oath's fragile weave. Sensory creep builds in the alcoves, confines the rain's chill seeps through your cloak, sweating from the stone walls like the lake's exhaled breath. And the salt on the wind intensifies, carried from evaporating waves below, coating your lips with a crystalline grit that begs for swallow, but forbids it. The second test unfolds as the drizzle swells to a steady pour, the ledge transforming into a shallow runnel, where water gathers in pools edged with mineral salts, their white crystals glinting like the thunderstone's veins under the feather's faint glow. Cup your hands to the flow, the liquid clear but laced with the lake's essence briny, and unyielding, a taste of superior's depths that the panther's vision evoked, now demanding endurance without relief. The taboo forces the measure. Listen to the rain without swallowing, letting the drops bead on your tongue and trickle down your chin. Their salt burning the throat like a blood price deferred, enforcing the silence that the lodge hammered into law. Your pulse quickens, the psychological tension coiling as hunger and thirst conspire, the scar's hollowness amplifying the void. But you hold breaths shallow, to savor the rain's cadences, soft percussion on leaves and stone. Layered with the distant rumble of settling thunder, iron and iron fading to whispers. The feather hums approvingly, its quirky details surfacing in the trial. This integrated artifact, born of the Thunderbird's breast, possesses an anomalous function where it absorbs excess salt from the air during such tests, crystallizing it along its quill as a bizarre temperament. Prick your finger on the growing edge, and it yields a drop of pure water. But only once, enforcing a taboo against greed for multiple pricks. Summon a salt storm that blinds the unworthy, scarring the eyes with temporary veils of white, a cost that trades vision for the lesson of restraint. Time stretches in the alcove, the rain a symphony measuring your worth, plinks evolving into a steady roar that drowns the lake's lap, forcing deeper listening to the silence beneath the subtle shifts in wind through the pines. Like Nanabozo's echoes turned inward, the thunderstone's muffled song vibrating against your side, a hymn fragment emerging in the downpour. Salt stings the sworn. Hunger hones the storm. You lean into the taboo, tongue extended to catch the rain without swallow. The salt crystallizing on your lips like frost from the panther's breath, hunger twisting your gut into knots that mirror the cliff's spiral path. A local legend rises in the deluge. It's drawn from the Ojibwe traditions along the North Shore in the 1920s. During a prolonged drought followed by relentless rains, recorded in weather annals from the U.S. Weather Bureau as one of the wettest seasons on record. Flooding wild rice fields and testing the band's resilient, an elder woman endured a similar cliff vigil near Batchewana Bay, listening to the rain without drink for 3 days, claiming it summoned the Thunderbird's gentle shift to balance the waters. This tale, shared in Midewin lodges amid the era's economic hardships from overfishing and logging, preserved the spiritual practices that guided communal endurance, blending historical deluges with the Monitous, tests to affirm the people's harmony with the elements against encroaching modernity. The silence deepens, your body a vessel for the elements' judgment, hunger hollowing you like the traded memory. Salt etching lines of fire down your throat, the rain's unswallowed flow tracing rivulets that cool the fevered skin. A confessional forms in the mind's quiet, it's unspoken against the taboo, deities of storm and deep. Your measures carve what the lodge began. Does this thirst reveal the village's reigns, or merely my unraveling worth? The feather's quill thickens with crystals tempting the prick, and you yield once the pure drop quenching a fraction of the burn, its sweetness, a fleeting boon that sharpens the resolve. The artifact's rule holding true, no, more or less the salt blind. The tests escalate the motifs. This alcove, a microcosm of river crossings where water's gifts demand silence. Star omens hidden in the clouds, rifts tilting faintly as witnesses. The panther's grudge echoed in the salt's bite, balanced by the thunderbird's oath. In this mythic logic, hunger and thirst serve as threshold guardians for the descent. Their function to forge the hero's silence into a weapon against the feuds below. Costs like ode endurance, scarring the flesh with cramps and parched whispers, ensuring the divine's miracles flow only to the tempered. The rain eases at last, tapering to a mist that veils the path onward. The pools receding to leave salt-drimed stones that crunch underfoot as you rise, limbs heavy but steadied by the trial's passage. The feather sheds its crystals like molted scales, the glow dimming to rest. And you feel the worth-measured hunger a companion now, silence a shield. The taboos listening, revealing the rain's true voice, not torment. But the lake's promise of renewal, braided with the village's distant needs. Sensory creep lingers the alcove's walls, still sweat rivulets of diluted salt. The air rings with the rain's fading echoes like oath-keepers' drums. And your throats burn pulses with the thunderstone's hum, a leitmotif propelling you downward toward the aurora's weave. Hymnal fragments persist in the mist. Listen dry, and skies reply. Salt's measure mends the lie. Ancient mysteries test in these elemental vigils, where heroes like you endure hunger and unswallowed rains to prove the oath's mettle. Their scars a bridge between the storm lodge's laws and the fates that await below, weaving the deity's balance through bodily forges of restraint. But the question that remained was, as the mist lifted too, revealed the cliff's base, and the northern lights began to stir like woven threads. Would the aurora's ledger track these tests as credits to your worth, or debts that hungered for more than silence could pay? The mist from the alcove's vigil clings to your cloak like a reluctant shroud as you reach the cliff's base. The rain's salt-trimed stones giving way to the pebbled shore where the lake laps with renewed vigor. Its waves now edged with the first tinges of northern glow that bleed from the horizon like threads of rivergrass woven across the night sky. The hunger's gnaw persists, a dull companion to the throat's lingering burn. But the tests have tempered your silence into a blade. The feather shed crystals crunching faintly under your moccasins as you reclaim the canoe and push into the shallows. Paddle dipping with the rhythm of unswallowed rains. The aurora unfurls overhead, not the gentle veil of summer lights, but a vibrant spread curtains of emerald. And violet cascading like the wild rice stalks bending in a sacred breeze, their dance illuminating. Superior's surface and flickering pulses that mirror the thunderstone's hum in your pouch. In the Anishinaabe tradition, these northern lights are the Manitu's ledger, woven by fate weavers who track the hero's debts and boons amid the ancient mysteries, where celestial signs etch the balance between sky deities and underwater guardians. Echoing the starry prophecies of Greek mythology's oracles or the fateful auroras that heralded Odin's wanderings in Norse legends, you glide the canoe northward along the shore, the aurora's glow, casting the water in ethereal hues that make the depths seem alive with submerged paths. The paddles slick sinking with the light's silent waves as they spread wider, enveloping the sky like a loom stretched taut. The psychological tension simmers and the glows embrace the epic cadence of your descent, now illuminated by this fate weaver, Haida. Spectral figure materializes faintly at the canoe's prow, not solid flesh but a shimmer of light woven from the aurora's threads its form. Androgynous and elongated, clad in robes of rippling green that trail like river grass into the water. This is the Fate Weaver, a Manitou of the North, who tracks debts in the lights that write themselves across the heavens, its eyes twin points of violet that pierce your silence, reading the ledger of your journey. The prophecies stir at Agua, the sturgeon's thrumming toll, Nanabozo's biting echoes, the panther's fiery naming, the thunderbird's feathered oath, and the cliff's elemental measures. Each entry a line of light that flickers in approval or warning. The weaver gestures with hands that dissolve into luminous strands, and the aurora responds, spreading like woven river grass to form a vast tapestry overhead. Veins of green tracing your sacred bargains, violet coils marking the blood prices, paid in crimson flickers for the traded memories that scar your core. Sensory details immerse the ledger's unveiling. The canoe's hull warms under the light's reflection, as if the water sweats phosphorescence from the depths, and the air hums with a soft, infrasonic thrum that vibrates in your chest like the thunderstone's song amplified, layered with the faint whisper of the aurora's folds. sonic textures of silk on stone evoking the iron of wings now distant. The weaver's voice emerges as a chorus of light's calm and methodical building suspense. Bearer of feather and stone, the north writes, your debt's the village's rice drinks. From your silences, but the panther's grudge coils unpaid a thread that tugs the loom toward flood. The lights shift, etching scenes in the sky. The eclipse is deer fleeing in silver arcs. The storm lodges bolts hammering laws in electric blue. Your unswallowed rain pooling in illusory drops that evaporate into violet mist. Each motif a recurring echo of the trials endured. The quirky detail of the fate weaver reveals itself in the ledger's weave, this Manitou's artifact. A spindle of pure auroral light, clutched in its translucent fist, possesses a bizarre temperament anomalous function, where it spins debts into visible threads that the hero can grasp and reweave. But with a taboo against alteration without cost, touch a crimson scar thread like your traded memory, and it burns the fingers with cold fire, forcing a new detta. Whispered confession to the lights that adds a year of wandering to the ledger. Leave it untouched, and the weave tightens, granting foresight into the temptations ahead. You extend a hand tentatively, the spindle's glow illuminating the canoe's prow, and the aurora's tapestry pulses, tracking the debts with precision. Credits for the sturgeon's crossing, a green line binding the labyrinth's breath. Debits for the panther's vision, violet knots that loosen only with the oath's fulfillment. In this pantheon, the Fate Weaver serves as Oracle's seer for northern trials. Its rule to escalate choices by illuminating the cost's miracles, like the village's rains balanced against personal scars, assuring heroes bear the deity's feuds in luminous accountability. A local legend threads into the light's dance, drawn from the oral histories of the Ojibwe along the Canadian shore in the early 1900s. During the construction of the Algoma Central Railway that scarred the lands near Sault Ste. Marie documented in historical records as a boom era of timber and iron extraction that disrupted traditional paths in. Elder Tracker witnessed an aurora so vivid it wove a ledger visible to his band guiding them around flooded rivers caused by dynamite blasts, the lights revealing safe crossings and bountiful berry patches. This tale, recounted in community fires amid the industrial tide, preserved the spiritual navigation of the people, blending the aurora's mythic ledger with practical resilience against colonial encroachments that threatened the Moneta's balance. The weaver leans closer, its form flickering like river grass in wind, and the spindle spins faster. Writing your current worth, the hunger's endurance, a sturdy green thread, the silence's measure a violet braid that strengthens the oath. But the unchosen memories hollow a crimson snag that pulls at the tapestry's edge, threatening to unravel the protections promised. You grasp a neutral thread, a green line from the Thunderstone's song, and the lights respond with warmth spreading through your arm. The weaver nodding as visions flicker. The soft wind's temptation ahead, reed beds where easy paths unthread the duty. The blood price of further memories to mend the snag. The aurora cascades brighter, its spread like a loom unrolling across the north. Sonic whispers evolving into a harmonious hum that layers with the lake's lap, the canoe gliding faster under the weave's propulsion. The confessional rises in the light's intimacy. Weaver of Fates illuminates what the cliff carve does. This debt's glow guide the village's calm or bind me tighter to the panther's coil. The figure tilts its head, spindle pausing, and the crimson snag pulses once, offering no answer but the subtle tightening of threads around your wrist. A scar of light that fades as quickly as it forms, enforcing the taboo's cost without touch. Hymnal fragments illuminate in the sky, lights weave what oaths conceive. Debts dance where heroes grieve, the tapestry shifts, foreshadowing the trickster's shadow in the coming winds. The easy weathers lure a violet temptation that tests the ledger's balance, motifs of labyrinths and star omens tilting in the light's folds. The aurora holds steady as the shore curves northward, the fate weaver dissolving into the weave with a final spin of the spindle, leaving the ledger. Etched in your mind's eye, debts, tracked credits earned the crimson. Snag a reminder of the costs that miracles demand, owed silences and traded echoes for the deity's favor. Sensory creep persists, the water now glows faintly with reflected threads, tasting of cool mint on the spray. The air rings with the aurora's fading hum, like distant oathkeepers' bells. The feather's warmth sinks with the lights, propelling you toward the reed beds where temptation brews. In these ancient mysteries, The northern weave tracks not just paths, but the heroes' souls. Their debts luminous bridges between the storm's laws and the fates that tempt below, ensuring the balance of sky and deep through enduring illuminated trials. But the question that remained was as the Aurora's ledger dimmed to a soft veil, and the soft wind began to murmur from the reeds ahead. Would this tracked debt reveal the temptation's true shortcut, or unthread the weave with a pull too easy to resist? The Aurora's veil thins to a faint shimmer as the canoe approaches the reed beds once more, their stalks rising like sentinels from the shallows. But now the wind murmurs from within, a soft zephyr carrying the scent of sun-warmed earth and blooming wildflowers that shouldn't thrive in this season's chill. The ledger's threads linger in your periphery green credits, pulsing faintly against the crimson snag of the traded memory. But the temptation reveals itself in the breeze, as caress a gentle push that eases the paddle from your grip, the blade floating idly as the current shifts unnaturally, drawing you deeper into the beds without effort. Hunger's gnaw from the cliffs, vigil sharpens with the flower's deceptive sweetness on the air. A lure that whispers of rest and bounty, the psychological tension, uncoiling like Nana Bozo's earlier laughter, turns seductive, testing the oath's weave against the easy pull of shortcuts and ancient mysteries. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such soft winds embody the trickster's subtler guise, a fate weaver's temptations that unthread heroic paths with illusions of mercy, echoing the siren's songs that lured Odysseus in Greek mythology, or the deceptive mead of the gods in Norse legends, where boons hide barbs in their honeyed breath. The reeds part without resistance, closing the canoe in a sun-dappled glade where the water shallows to a glassy pond fringed with low-hanging boughs, heavy with unfamiliar fruits, plump berries of deep crimson, glistening like the blood prices you've paid. Their aroma mingling with the wind's murmur into a symphony of temptation. You ship the paddle fully, the hull grounding softly on a bed of silt that cushions like woven mats, and the soft wind solidifies into Nanabozo's form once again, lounging against a reed cluster with a lazy grin. His patchwork hides now adorned with auroral threads that flicker violet, as if the ledger has summoned him to probe its depths. Wanderer returned, he drawls, voice a lilting breeze that rustles the berries closer. The north's lights track your scars. But why climb cliffs and swallow salt when the deep offers ease? A shortcut waits follow the wind's whisper. The village's rains fall without your further cuts. His eyes sparkle with mischief, gesturing to a hidden channel where the reeds bend invitingly, promising swift passage to the prophecy's end without the panther's depths or the lodge's laws. You step onto the firm bank, moccasins sinking into loamy earth that yields like the sturgeon's, thrumming but warmer, more yielding. The temptation's sensory creep enveloping you, the berries. Juice beads temptingly sweet and metallic on the tongue if plucked. A taste that echoes the thunderstone's song but without its hum's discipline, and the wind caresses your skin like the sky deer's folded time, elongating moments into languid ease. The feather in your cloak warms erratically, its glow dimming as the crimson snag in the ledger pulses brighter in your mind's eye. The weaver's threads tightening around the shortcut's allura, path that bypasses the blood price, delivering the oath's miracle without the scars deepening, but at what unvoiced cost? Nanabozo circles slowly, his steps leaving no print on the silt, and plucks a berry, offering it with a wink. One taste, and the hunger fades. The wind carries you home, debts unpaid, the panther's coil untugged. The air hums softly, sonic textures of rid sighs and berry drips layering into a seductive hymn. Iron and iron whispers from the depths now muffled by the breeze's hush, as if the lake itself conspires in the lure. The quirky detail of this temptation surfaces in the trickster-esque game. The soft wind-esque anomalous function lies in its woven fruits. Berries that grant illusory boons easing thirst with false sweetness that quenches without nourishing, enforcing a bizarre taboo against indulgence. For one berry trades a fleeting calm but sows a seed of doubt that unthreads the ledger's green credits, turning them violet and pulling the crimson snag tighter. And the wind reveals its true measure. A test of the oath's silence where the hero must listen to the breeze's core, whisper a proverb of costs deferred. You hesitate, hand hovering near the offered fruit, the psychological intrigue deepening as visions flicker from the Aurora's residue. the village thriving under unearned rains, but shadows of flood rising from the panther's unchecked grudge, the Thunderbird's wings, withholding their shield when the weave frays. In this mythic logic, Nanabozo's return escalates the trials with consequential whims, his shortcuts a threshold too deeper. Debts where heroes must choose between easy paths and the deity's balanced feuds, costs like owed temptations, scarring the will with what-ifs. A local legend weaves into the glade's hush recalled from the elders' tales by the Pick River in the 1950s. During the post-war boom, when hydroelectric dams began altering Lake Superior's flows, documented in engineering reports from the International Joint Commission as projects that flooded traditional fishing grounds in Ojibwe, fishermen near the Slate Islands followed a soft wind through reed beds, tempted by abundant berries that promised quick hauls, only to find his nets empty and storms raging unchecked. The tale, shared in family gatherings amid the era's cultural shifts from assimilation policies, preserved warnings against such lures, blending historical environmental changes with the Monotous. Tests to guide the people's steadfastness against modernity, seductive shortcuts that disrupted the land's oaths. The wind murmurs louder, carrying fragments of that proverb. Breeze bends the reed, but oaths root deep. Taste the ease, and debts creep. You draw back your hand, honoring the silence, and Nanabozo's grin widens, the berries wilting slightly in his palm as the wind shifts, revealing the channel's illusion, a mirage of calm water that dissolves into tangled roots when approached, the true path demanding the paddle's pull once more. The temptation crests, then ebbs, the glade's warmth cooling to the lake's familiar chill hunger, returning sharper but unyielding, the feathers glows steadying as the ledger's threads, realigning green lines thickening for the resistance, the crimson snag holding but not pulling further. Nanabozo laughs softly, fading into the reeds with a final toss of the withered berry. The wind whispers what the storm denies. You'll choose the cut. And the weave complies. Sensory details linger in the retreat. The silt now sweats, a faint brine from the illusions break the air. Rings with the wind's fading sighs like distant loon calls, and the berry's scent sours to damp earth, a reminder of deferred costs. Hymnal fragments echo in the reeds. Temptation bends, silence mends. Shortcuts scar what oaths defend. The through line tightens. The soft winds test braiding with earlier motifs, reed beds as recurring labyrinths. Star omens in the aurora's weave. Panthers coiled, tempted but unbound, propelling you back to the canoe with resolve forged anew. The temptations pull a scar of near yield that tempers the silence for trials ahead. You launch into the channel's true flow, paddle resuming its rhythm, the reed beds closing behind like a gate sealed by choice, the northern lights flickering once more in approval overhead. Ancient mysteries murmur in these windy lures where tricksters like Nanabozo offer shortcuts that heroes must refuse their resistances, weaving debts into strengths amid the deities. Grand balances costs of temptation, etching the soul with the wisdom to endure unthwarted paths. But the question that remained was, as the reeds receded and the lake opened to the northern expanse, where the ice bridge stirred, would the frozen threshold honor this resisted temptation, or demand a crossing where the ledger's debts froze into unbreakable chains? The reed bed's murmurs fade into the lake's broader hush as the canoe bears you northward under the aurora's lingering veil, the resisted temptation scar a faint itch where the berry's sweetness almost touch settling, like frost on your resolve, sharpening the silence against the chill that deepens with the season's turn. The shore curves toward a jagged promontory where Superior's waters narrow into a fjord-like inlet, the air growing taut with the bite of impending freeze, breaths visible now as plumes that curl like the fate weaver's threads. The ice bridge emerges from the gloom, a natural span of glacial remnants arching over a chasm where the lake meets a hidden river's plunge, its surface a translucent sheet veined with blue cracks that glow faintly under the northern lights, spanning perhaps 50 paces from cliff to a distant isle shrouded in mist. In the Anishinaabe lore, such frozen thresholds mark the winter's gate crossings where heroes confront the cold's unyielding judgment, ancient mysteries where the elements forge the soul's isolation amid the deity's feuds, echoing the icy trials of the Norse Nibelheim, or the frozen rivers that tested Achilles in Greek epics, where oaths solidify in frost or shatter under weight. You beach the canoe on the promontory's icy fringe, the whole scraping against rime that crusts the pebbles like salt from the vigil. And step onto the bridge's lip, moccasins crunching through a thin crust that yields to slick glass beneath. The thunderstones hum vibrating warnings through your pouch as the feather. This warmth flares briefly against the encroaching cold. The crossing demands immediacy. The ledger S threads. Pulsing in your mind, SI green credits for the wind S refusal. Now tested against this frozen expanse where hesitation thins the ice further, a taboo born of the Storm Lodge's laws. Move without pause, honoring the silence that listens to the bridge's creak, or risk the chasms. Ma claiming the unwary is blood price. Sensory creep assaults the thresholds. The air sweats hoarfrost that beads on your lashes like unswallowed rain turned solid. Tasting of iron-tanged wind from the depths below. The bridge's surface sings underfoot with a sonic texture of cracking whispers. Layered with the distant roar of the river's plunge. Iron echoes from the panther's submerged realm, rising through the ice like grudges unfrozen. The psychological tension coils as you advance, each step a deliberate press that sends hairline fractures spiderwebbing outward the cold. Seeping upward to numb your calves, amplifying the hunger as hollow into a deeper void where the traded memory as scar aches like exposed bone. Midway across, the ice bridge reveals its guardian, not a beast, but the frost itself, manifesting as a spectral wendigo, a gaunt shadow etched in the translucent sheet. Its form a twisted silhouette of elongated limbs and hollow eyes that stare upward from the blue veins, born of the winter's hunger that preys on the isolated soul. In this pantheon, the wendigo embodies the frozen taboo, a Manitou of insatiable want that tests the oath-bound by amplifying debts, the ledger-esque crimson snag now glowing through the ice. Pulling at your steps with visions of feasts in the reeds, the soft wind's berries ripening eternally if you but falter. The shadow stirs, its breath a visible gale that howls across the bridge, carrying the scent of pine rot and distant village fires, tempting the silence to break with a cry for warmth. You press on, the feathers glow illuminating the cracks like star omens tilting in warning. Its anomalous function quirky in the freeze. The integrated plume sheds warmth and pulses that melt micropaths ahead, but bizarrely enforces a rule against reliance if you lean too heavily on its light. The ice refreezes thicker around your feet, trapping you in a cocoon of rime that demands a traded breath, exhaling a piece of your voice into the wendigo's maw, scarring the throat with perpetual rasp. Tread by feel, and it guides subtly, the cost deferred to the soul's endurance. The wendigo's eyes flare, projecting illusions across the bridge, phantom tables laden with venison and wild rice. McCamus's face flickering at the edge, her voice a whisper urging rest. The crimson snag unthreading the ledger's weave if yielded to. Sensory details layer the trial. The ice sweats a slick film that numbs your palms when you steady against it. The cold ringing in your ears, like the aurora's hum, frozen solid. The chasm's roar below swells, a guttural purr echoing the panther's grudge, now allied with winter's bite to test the oath's chill. Local legend surfaces in the howl. Drawn from the Ojibwe stories of the North Shore's harsh winters in the 1800s, during the long winter of 1816, chronicled in fur trade diaries from posts like Mishipikotan, as a season of unprecedented cold that froze the lakes, bays, and starved bands, Elder Hunter crossed a similar ice bridge near the Pick River, haunted by wendigo shadows that amplified his hunger only to emerge reciting laws that summoned a thaw saving his village. This tale passed in Sweat Lodge, writes, amid the era's smallpox epidemics and treaty pressures preserved the spiritual crossings that sustained the people, blending historical famines with the monotonous frozen trials to a firm resilience against the white man's winters of displacement and disease. The illusions thicken, the wendigo's limbs cracking the ice in feigned pursuit. But you honor the taboo, listening to the bridge's creak without word, the subtle shifts revealing safe veins of thicker frost. The thunderstone's song syncing with your pulse to steady the steps, hunger twisting but unbreaking. The crossing escalates the wendigo's howl, peaking as the far isle nears its shadow, lunging upward in a gale that buffets your cloak, the feather's warmth flaring too. Counter the assault melting a path through the rime trap that forms at your heels. A confessional forms in the mind's frozen silence. Spirit of want. Your chill echoes the lodge S carved does. This bridge binds the debts or frees the oath's thaw. The wendigo recoils, eyes dimming as the illusions shatter like hoarfrost. The bridge groaning in approval, its creak evolving into a resonant hum that layers with the reed flute's warmth. A hymnal fragment rising in the cold, ice holds the sworn. Windigo wanes where silences are worn, the guardian fades into the veins, leaving the ice intact but scarred with its silhouette. A permanent etching that the ledger's threads illuminate green lines for the endurance, the crimson. Snag holding steady the temptation's resistance woven into the frozen weave. You step onto the isle shore, the bridge cracking faintly behind, but holding. The cold's trial forging your silence into unyielding frost, hunger a sharpened edge now. The feather cooling to rest as the mist parts to reveal the isle's heart, a circle of standing stones veined with auroral glow, where the next temptation stirs in the thawing air. The through line propels forward, the frozen threshold braiding motifs of elemental measure salt to ice. Wind to Windigother, panther's coil hinted in the chasm's depths. The Thunderbird's oath solidified in the crossing's chill. In these ancient mysteries, ice bridges test the hero's isolation, their guardians amplifying debts to ensure the deity's balances endure, costs of numbness and phantom wants, scarring the flesh with the wisdom to cross unbowed. But the question that remained was, as the standing stones loomed, and the thawing mist whispered of verdant ease with the isles. Circle honor this frozen worth, or unravel the ledger with a warmth that melted oaths into forgotten streams. The isle's mist thaws into a humid veil as you approach the circle of standing stones, their monolithic forms, rising like ancient sentinels from the frost-kissed earth, veined with the aurora's residual glow that pulses. Faintly against the encroaching night, the ice bridge's creak echoes distantly behind you, a fading sentinel to the Windigo's retreat, but the warmth emanating from the stones pulls at your chilled limbs, a verdant promise that counters the hunger's persistent twist and the numbness in your toes. The air shifts here, heavy with the scent of unfurling leaves and loamy soil, as if spring has burrowed into this winter's heart. The thawing mist swirling around the circle like fate weaver's breaths, coaxing life from dormancy. In the Anishina pantheon, such stone rings serve as the earth's quiet altars, places where heroes face the bloom of renewal amid ancient mysteries. Thresholds, where the deity's feuds manifest in cycles of growth and decay, echoing the sacred groves of Celtic lore, or the verdant rebirths that tested heroes in Norse sagas, where Yggdrasil's roots demanded oaths from the frozen ground. You step into the circle's embrace, the standing stones forming a perfect ring of weathered granite etched with spirals that mimic the thunderstone's veins. Their surfaces warming your palms when brushed, releasing a subtle hum that syncs with the feather's pulse in your cloak. The mist thickens within the perimeter, condensing into dew that beads on the grass sprouting improbably at your feet, tender shoots of wild rice and berry vines curling upward, their leaves unfurling with a soft rustle that invites rest. The temptation of verdant ease unfolding like the soft wind's earlier lure, but rooted deeper in the earth's own whisper. Sensory creep envelops the rite. The stones sweat a humid vapor that clings to your skin like the alcove's unswallowed rain turned fertile. A tasting of sweet earth on the breeze, and the grass yields underfoot with a sonic texture of muffled sighs, layered with the distant lap of the isles, encircling waters, iron undertones from the chasm now softened to a nurturing purr, as if the panther's depths approve this bloom. At the circle's heart, a low mound rises, crowned by a single bloomer, massive flower of iridescent petals, in shades of emerald and gold. Its center a glowing orb that pulses like the aurora's spindle, emanating waves of warmth that chase the cold from your bones and dull the hunger to a distant murmur. This is the verdant guardian, not a form, but the flower's essence. A manitou of renewal born from the earth's counter to winter's grasp, its temperament benevolent yet binding, offering ease that tempts the oath's unraveling. Rest here. And the scars fade, the traded memory's hollow fills with illusory kin. The ledger's crimson snag dissolves in the bloom's nectar, delivering the village's rains without further trial. Petals quiver, releasing pollen that drifts like golden threads. Weaving visions in the mist, the Pick River's shores greening eternally, Nukamese's face restored in laughter by the lodge fire, the Thunderbird's wings unfurling without blood price. A shortcut through the deity's feuds where debts melt into forgotten streams. The psychological tension blooms with the flower, the epic cadence narrowing to this intimate choice, yield to the warmth, and the prophecy fulfills in verdant illusion. Resist, and the circle's silence demands a deeper listening to the earth's core laws. The quirky detail of the verdant guardian reveals itself in the flower's orb. This artifact, pulsing with the essence of spring's monotus, possesses an anomalous function where its nectar grants temporary renewals. Sipping heals the flesh. Scars from ice and salt, but bizarrely enforces a taboo against full indulgence for one-taste trades. A fleeting bloom, but sows seeds of stagnation in the soul, rooting the hero in place until the ledger's green credits wither to brown, letting the crimson snag into a tangle that floods the village's gains. Its hold, and the flower wilts slightly, revealing its true measure, proverb etched in the petals, guiding the oathbound to the northern expanse's final crossing. You kneel before the mound, the warmth radiating like the storm lodges, bolts turn gentle, the reed flute flaring hot and warning as the visions intensify, pollen dusting your lashes with golden weight. In this mythic logic, the verdant temptation escalates the trials with consequential growth. Its circle a threshold, where heroes must choose between Earth's mercy and the deity's stern balances, costs like ode bloom, scarring the will with the ache of almost healed wounds. A local legend rises in the mists, hushed drawn from the Ojibwe elders' accounts of sacred sites in the late 1800s. During the allotment era, when U.S. policies fragmented reservation lands along Lake Superior, documented in Dawes Act records as a time of forced surveys that uprooted traditional Grovesan and Anishinaabe healer, entered a stone circle near Fond du Lac, tempted by a blooming guardian that promised restored health amid famine, but resisted to preserve the band's migration paths, the flower's wilt guiding her to hidden springs. This story, recited in medicine societies amid the era's cultural suppressions, preserved the spiritual discernments that sustained the people, blending historical land losses with the Monitu's verdant tests to affirm the oaths that rooted resilience against assimilation as thawing illusions. The petals part invitingly, nectar beating like dukest blood, and the orb's glow illuminates the proverb, bloom tempts the sworn. Roots hold what winds have torn. You draw back, honoring the silence, the warmth receding as the flower bows. Slightly its wilt, releasing a seed into your palm, a small, warm kernel, etched with spirals, the guardian's gift for resistance to plant at journey's end for the village's true renewal. The temptation ebbs, the circle's grass yellowing at the edges, as the mist cools, hunger returning with a verdant edge, the almost taste. Nectar sharpening the resolve, the feather's warmth steadying as the ledger's threads realign green lines. Blooming thicker for the choice, the crimson snag loosening its pull. Sensory details persist in the retreat. The stone's sweat now chills to dew that evaporates like fading illusions. The air rings with the flower's wilting sigh, like a distant hymn's close. And the seed's kernel pulses softly in your hand, a leitmotif of deferred boons. Hymnal fragments linger in the petal's fold, verdant ease bends, silence sends. Temptations scar what oaths defend. The through line advances, the aisles circle braiding motifs of renewals, lure soft wind to verdant guardian. Ice to bloom the panther's coil hinted in the earth's nurturing purr. The thunderbird's oath preserved in the wilt's wisdom, propelling you from the stones toward the northern expanse where the final crossing awaits under the aurora's watchful weave. You exit the circle, the standing stones dimming behind like closed gates, the seed tucked beside the thunderstone. Its warmth a counter to the reawakening chill that temptations scar, a fertile ache that tempers the silence for the journey's close. Ancient mysteries circle in these blooming altars, where guardians like the verdant flower offer warmth that heroes must refuse. Their resistances rooting debts into enduring strengths amid the deity's cycles, at costs of near yield, etching the soul with the growth to cross unthwarted. But the question that remained was, as the isle receded and the aurora reignited to guide the northern waters, would the final expanses crossing honor this rooted worth, or flood the ledger with streams that wash the oath into oblivion? The isle's circle fades into the northern mist as you launch the canoe once more, the seed from the verdant guardian nestled warm. Against the thunderstone, its spiral etchings a subtle thrum that counters the rekindled chill sweeping from the expanse ahead. The aurora reignites overhead, its threads weaving tighter across the vault like the fate weaver's loom drawing to a close, casting the lake's surface in luminous ripples that guide your paddle-esque strokes toward the final crossing of vast. Fog-shrouded strait where Superior's waters funnel into an abyssal rift, the horizon swallowed by a wall of churning clouds that hint at the prophecy's culmination. The resisted bloom's scar lingers as a fertile pull in your chest, the almost tealed to warmth sharpening the hunger into a vigilant edge. The silence now a rooted shield against the expanse's murmur, where the ledger's debts converge in the deity's ultimate balance. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such northern straits embody the world's edge, thresholds where heroes seal oaths amid the ancient mysteries, flood places where sky and deep collide in sacred bargains, echoing the chaotic straits of Charybdis in Greek lore or the roaring Joel that bridged realms in, Norse epics where crossings demanded the soul's full measure against oblivion's tide. The strait opens before you, a roiling funnel of waves capped with foam that glows under the aurora's violet fringe, the current pulling the canoe with insistent tugs that test the ash blade's grip, as if the panther's coil rises anew to claim the unthwarted path. You paddle against the surge muscles burning from the vigil's endurance, the feather's warmth flaring sporadically to steady the hull. But the fog thickens, veiling the rift's far shore in impenetrable gray, the air heavy with the brine of deep upheavals and the faint electric tang of storms unborn. Sensory creeps surges with the waters, the lake sweat's a frothy sweat that sprays your face like the cliff's unswallowed rain turned wild. Tasting of salt and iron from the chasm's depths, and the wave's roar builds into a sonic texture of thunderous laps, layered with infrasonic rumbles that vibrate the bones like the sturgeon's thrumming amplified. Iron clashes from submerged talons scraping the rift's floor, echoing the Thunderbird's distant wings in feud. At the strait's heart, the final guardian manifests, not a single form but the flood itself rising as a colossal wave manitou. Its crest a swirling vortex of water and mist crowned by the fate weaver's spectral visage, elongated features woven from auroral threads that flicker with the ledger's pulse. The weaver's eyes violet orbs, scanning your deathslock from the waves. Peak voice booming over the surge like the storm lodge's bolts. Oath-bearer. The North's weave tightens, the village's rains crest here, but the panther's flood demands reckoning. Cross with the ledger balanced, or the strait swallows the unearned. The wave rears, curling like the underwater panther's tail, its base churning with illusory debris shards of ice from the bridge, wilted petals from the bloom withered, berries from the wind, each a motif of resisted temptations now weaponized to unthread the oath. The psychological tension peaks in the maelstrom, the epic scope narrowing to this deluge, where heroes must navigate the deities. Converged feuds, the crimson snag glowing brightest in the weaver's gaze, pulling at the green credits like a tide eroding shores. The wave manitou's quirky detail reveals itself in the vortex, this guardian's core. A spindle of solidified aurora clutched in the weaver's misty fist, possesses an anomalous function where it reels in debts as tangible threads, crimson lines snagging your cloak if yielded to, enforcing a bizarre taboo against severance. For cutting one floods the canoe with visions of undone costs, drowning the hero in what-ifs that weaken the paddle's stroke. Weave them into the green credits instead in the straight parts, the cost a final blood price to bind the ledger eternally, scarring the heart with a perpetual tide's echo. You grip the paddle tighter, the thunderstone singing defiantly against the roar, its hum syncing with the reed flute's warmth to illuminate the threads trailing from the wave-violet knots of the panther's grudge. Green braids of the Thunderbird's oath, the seed spiral ready to anchor the weave. The flood surges closer, spray lashing like the wendigos, gale visions cascading, the village flooded if the snag pulls free. Nookamis's face dissolving in the deluge. The soft wind's ease manifesting as a calm eye within the vortex, tempting one last shortcut to seal the rains without full measure. In this mythic logic, the wave manitou escalates the culmination with consequential floods, its straight a threshold where the ledger's balance tips the deity's scale sky wings against deep coils. Renewal against decay costs, like ode reckonings scarring the vessel with leaks of doubt unless the hero weaves true. A local legend crashes with the waves, drawn from the Ojibwe sagas of the Great Floods in the 1910s. During the catastrophic spring thaw that swelled Lake Superior's levels recorded in hydrological surveys from the West Lake Survey as a deluge that submerged islands and drowned canoes near the Quinanon Elder Navigator faced a similar wave guardian in the Strait S Fury, weaving auroral threads to part the flood and save his bands crossing to safer grounds. This account, etched in birch bark scrolls amid the era's shipping booms and reservation floods, preserved the spiritual weavings that guided the people, blending historical inundations with the momentous final trials to affirm the oaths that stemmed the waters against industrial tides and forgotten treaties. The vortex looms, threads whipping like fate weaver's lashes, and you extend the seed from your pouch, its warmth piercing the spray to snag a crimson line, the traded memory S, hollow drawing it toward the green braids of endurance. The weave tightening with a resonant snap that steadies the canoe. The weaver nods from the crest spindle, spinning furiously, but the flood demands the price. Prick from the thunderstone's edge on your palm, blood welling to anoint the threads, crimson mingling with the waves in a sizzle that parts the surge, the heart scarring with a tidal pulse that echoes eternally in your veins. Sensory details immerse the weaving. The water's froth numbs then warms with the blood's flow. The air rings with the spindle's whirl like oath keepers. Drums in crescendo, and the aurora cascades brighter, its threads layering into a hymnal roar. Floods test the sworn. Weaves hold what depths have torn. The visions shatter. The wave receding to reveal the far shore, a misty beach, fringed with wild rice heads nodding in approval. The ledger balanced in luminous equilibrium, green dominant but laced with the crimson scar. The canoe grounds softly, the strait calming to a gentle flow, the wave Manitou, dissolving into mist with a final flicker of violet eyes. The seed now embedded in the weave is a spiral anchor, its gift the true renewal for the village's shores. The through-line seals, the final crossing braiding all motifs sice to flood. Temptations to reckonings, the panther's coil subdued by the Thunderbird's oath. Next, the aurora's ledger etched in your blood. Hymnal fragments fade with the roar. Straits part for the bound. Debts drown where silences are found. You step ashore. The scars tide a constant undercurrent, hunger sated by the rite's fulfillment, silence rooted in victory's hush. Ancient mysteries flood these northern edges, where guardians like the wave Manitou demand weavings that heroes cannot evade, their balances forging miracles amid the deities' clashes, costs of scarred hearts a bridge to the ordinary world's mended peace. But the question that remained was, as the aurora dimmed to stars, and the wild rice swayed in welcoming hush, would the village's shores embrace this woven return, or stir with echoes of the flood that the oath had only deferred? The wild rice heads bow in the aurora's dying glow as you step from the misty beach. The strait's flood receding to a serene murmur that echoes the ledger's final weave. Its threads now embedded in your veins, like the seed's spiral, pulsing with the oath's fulfilled cadence. The canoe trails behind on a gentle current drawn by unseen hands toward the familiar curve of the Pick River's mouth, the northern expanse folding back into the ordinary world's embrace under a sky where stars reclaim their vigil. The Thunderbird's eye steady once more without tilt. The heart's tidal scar throbs with each breath, a perpetual undercurrent that mingles the panther's depths with the skybird's wings. But the silence feels rooted now. It's tempered by the crossing's costs, the traded memories hollow a quiet companion. Hunger sated by the rite's intangible bounty, the feather's warmth a subtle anchor against the night's returning chill. In the Anishinaabe tradition, such returns from the world's edge mark the hero's reintegration, ancient mysteries where the deities' balances manifest in the village's rhythms. Thresholds cross not in triumph alone, but in the scarred harmony of feuds resolved, echoing the homecomings of Odysseus in Greek lore, or the wanderer's return to Asgard in Norse sagas, where oaths weave into the communal fabric at enduring prices. The river's flow quickens as dawn hints at the horizon, carrying you past fog-shrouded bays where loons call in tentative welcome, their cries layering with the water's lap into a sonic texture of homecoming, soft, resonant, like the sturgeon's thrumming softened a lullaby. The air lightens, shedding the strait's brine for the loamy scent of rice beds stirring from dormancy. The first rains from your oath pattering faintly on the leaves, a miracle unfolding in gentle sheets that nourish without flood. Sensory creep eases into familiarity. The river's surface sweats a warm mist that beads on your skin like the alcove dew turned benevolent, tasting of fresh earth and wild ginger on the breeze. And the canoe's hull creaks with relief. Irony yarn echoes from the depths, now distant harmonies rather than clashes. It's the thunderstone's song quieting to a contented hum that syncs with the reed flute's pulse. The village emerges gradually, smoke curling from cedar lodges clustered along the shore. Figures stirring at the water's edge, their silhouettes etched against the rising light like the standing stone spirals come alive. You beach the craft on the familiar mudflat's moccasins, sinking into the silt that clings like Bidwid's oathkeeper grip, and the elder waits there. Once more, his frame silhouetted by the first fire of the day staff, topped with the thunderstone's kin, glinting in the dawn. His eyes, deep-set and knowing, meet yours without surprise. The air between you humming with the unspoken weave, the prophecy stirred at Agawa now fulfilled. The ledger's debts balanced in the rains that slick the ground. The Anemoki's wings have turned the storm, he says, voice gravelly as the river's bed, building a quiet suspense in the reunion. And the panther's coil sleeps beneath the rice bud. What scars does the north's weave bear, child of the shores? He gestures to the fire where a kettle bubbles with sweet flag infusion. Honoring the summer law of measured words, and you sit, the warmth chasing the tidal scar's chill, the seed from the verdant guardian passed into his calloused palm, it spirals promising the village's true renewal when planted at the solstice. The return unfolds in ritual intimacy. The elder, tracing the oath's through line with questions that probe without demanding, the starry tilt witnessed. The sturgeon's thrumming toll, Nanabozo's biting echoes and windy lures, the panther's fiery naming in green depths. The eclipse's deer-folding time, the storm lodge's hammered loss, the cliff's salt and ice, the blooming temptation's wilt. The floods weaving at the straight teach motif, a thread he nods to. The fire-s pop underscoring the costs, the unchosen memory-s hollow where Nukamus's gaze resides no more. The heart's perpetual tide from the final blood price, silence's ode that muffled joy's echoes forever. The psychological tension resolves in the sharing, not erasure, but integration. The epic scope broadening to the village's collective breath as kin gather. Drawn by the rain's patter and the elder's summons, their faces lighting with the miracle's proof rice beds greening under the gentle fall, fish returning to the bays without drought's bite. Sensory details layer the homecoming. The kettle's steam rises like the mist from the isle. Spicy and grounding, the fire's crackle harmonizing with the river's flow into a communal hymn. And the ground softens under the rain. Its loamy embrace sweating renewal that seeps into your scars, easing the hunger to a sated warmth. The quirky detail of the return reveals itself in the seed-s planting. As Bidwid presses it into the mud-flat-s edge, the kernel pulses once. Its anomalous function blooming in the dawn, faint auroral thread weaving from its spirals to the sky. Linking the ledger's balance to the village's fate, but bizarrely enforcing a final taboo against revelation. For speaking the weave's full costs aloud summons a minor flood that tests the kin's faith. Nurture in silence, and it roots the oath eternally, the cost a traded whisper. Among the people scarring the communal memory with subtle veils of wonder. In this pantheon, the village serves as the oath's living lodge, its rhythms the ultimate guardian, where heroes reintegrate the deity's boons, escalating the narrative with consequential harmonies reigns for droughts, bounties for silences, ensuring the feud's balance endures in daily cycles. A historical fact threads into the rite recalled from the elder's lineage. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, grip on the North Shore documented in WPA relief records as a time of federal aid clashing with traditional economies. An Anishinaabe community near the Pick River planted sacred seeds after a visionary return from a storm quest. The resulting harvests sustaining them through rationed winters. This legacy woven into family oral traditions amid the era's New Deal programs and cultural revivals, preserved the spiritual returns that fortified the people. Blending historical hardships with the Manitus, fulfilled prophecies to affirm resilience against economic floods and forgotten pacts. The kin encircle the fire, voices rising in fragmented hymns. Wings turn the rain, depths sleep in vain. Heroes return what oaths contain. You feel the weave complete. The title scar, a badge now. Pulsing with the village's heartbeat, the traded hollow filled not by illusion but by shared glances that echo Nukamus's warmth. The silence a bridge rather than chain, the artifacts in your pouch thunderstone, red flute, feather humming in quiet duet as relics return to the communal lodge. A confessional slips in the fire's glow. Elder, North's debt scarred deeper than the floods weaved, does this return mend the village's thirst, or echo the panther's deferred coil? Didwid smiles faintly, staff tapping the mud once. A resonant thud that vibrates through the rain-slick ground, mends and echoes both. Oaths live in the root, not the fruit. The rain's steady, the rice bed's whispering growth, the aurora's last threads dissolving into the dawn. The prophecy a stir at Agawa, now a living cycle where the deities' feuds balance in the people-less enduring hush. The homecoming seals the journey motifs converging in the river's curved star omens in the steady. Labyrinths in the village paths, temptations rooted in the planted seed, the panther's grudge, a sleeping. Current beneath the rains, the thunderbird's oath a wing over the shores. Sensory creep settles into peace, the fire's warmth chases the straits, chill the rain's patter. A lullaby on lodge roofs, the air ringing with kind voices like the aurora's hum, turned familial, the heart's tide a gentle lap rather than roar. Hymnal fragments close the rite, returns weave the sworn. Villages hold what journeys have worn. Ancient mysteries culminate in these river-mouth returns, where heroes like you reintegrate the gods' miracles, or scars weaving personal costs into communal strengths amid the eternal balances of sky and deep. The fulfilled oaths a testament to the paths that scar to heal. But the question that remained was, as the dawn broke fully and the rains nourished the greening beds, would this woven peace endure the season's turn, or awaken the panther's coil and floods that tested the silence anew? The rains settle into a rhythmic cadence over the weeks that follow, nourishing the Pick River's shores where wild rice stalks thicken like the ledger's green threads, their heads bowing heavy with promise under the autumn's early gold. You move through the village's daily weave, the tidal scar in your heart, a steady pulse that syncs with the river's flow, a reminder of the strait's flood and the panther's deferred coil. While the silence you bear muffles your words to measured whispers, kin nodding in quiet understanding without probing the costs. The seed from the verdant guardian takes root in the mudflat's edge, it spirals unfurling into tender shoots that draw the peoples. Gaze a living emblem of the oath's fulfillment amid the ancient mysteries where heroes. Return seed communal cycles thresholds cross not in isolation but in the shared harvest of deities' balances. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such post-quest rhythms embody the enduring truce, where sky wings and deep coils simmer beneath the ordinary, echoing the fragile pieces after divine clashes in Greek lore, post-Trojan calms, or the Norse gods. Vigilant halls after Ragnarok's echoes, oaths woven into the land's quiet resurgence. Winter creeps in with the first hard frosts blanketing the rice beds in crystalline hush, and you find yourself at the shaking tent once more. The structure of birch poles and hides swaying gently in the wind's sigh, its interior warmed by the elder's drum that thumps like the sturgeon's thrumming reborn. Bidwid sits across the fire pit, his face etched deeper by the season's toll, the thunderstones. Kin on his staff glowing faintly as he invokes the right not for prophecies stir, but for the weave's maintenance, a confessional circle where the village's seers share the scar's burdens. The tent's walls pulse with shadows that dance like the aurora's threads. The air thick with the smoke of sacred cedar and sweetgrass, its scent grounding the psychological tension that lingers in your courth, the traded memory-s hollow, a void where Nokomis's stories once filled, the nights now echoed only in the kin's retellings. The heart's tide rising subtly, as if sensing the panther's stir below the ice. Sensory creep builds in the right-s intimacy. The hides sweat a faint condensation from the inner heat, beating on your brow like the alcove's unswallowed rain turned introspective. And the drum's rhythm layers with the distant ice crack on the river. Iron whispers from the depths, hinting at feuds not fully quelled. The fires pop a sonic counterpoint to the silence you enforce. The elder's voice rises in the drum's cadence. Probing the return's echoes, the rains have greened the beds, the fish return to the bays. But the coil sleeps uneasy. What dreams? Does the North's weave whisper in your scars, oath keeper? You lean forward, the feather in your cloak humming softly. Its warmth a quirky anchor that flares when doubts surface, revealing its anomalous function in this winter vigil. The integrated plume now sheds faint auroral flecks that illuminate hidden truths in the smoke, but bizarrely enforces a taboo against full disclosure, for naming the tidal scar allowed summons phantom waves that chill the tent, forcing a traded breath from the circle, scarring the shared warmth with isolation's frost. Share in fragments, and it guides the right, the cost deferred to the soul's communal mend. Visions flicker in the flex Nabozo's laughter and the reeds turning to warnings, the eclipse's deer bounding across. Frozen skies, the wave manitou's spindle-spinning threads that tangle anew under the ice. Motifs recurring as the panther's grudge simmers the thunderbirds. Oath of vigilant wing overhead, but strained by the season's weight. The rite escalates subtly, kin voices joining the drum in hymnal fragments. Winter holds the sworn. Coils dream what rains have worn. The psychological intrigue deepens as the ice's cracks grow louder outside. A low rumble that vibrates the tent poles like the straits surge reborn. The ledger's balance tested in this frozen introspection where the village's peace hangs on the weave's endurance. You confess in measured whispers, the soft wind's resisted lure. The verdant bloom's wilted gift. The flood's blood-anointed threads each fragment strengthening the circle's hum. Elder nodding as the flecks weave a new vision. The river thawing come spring, but shadows stirring in the depths. The panther's green fire glinting through the melt, a deferred flood that demands the oath's renewal. In this mythic logic, the shaking tent serves as the return's guardian lodge, its rites escalating the hero's scars into communal vigilance, consequential harmonies where miracles like the rains persist only through shared silence's costs. Like ode vigils scarring the winter nights with the wisdom to watch unyielding. A local legend emerges in the smoke's curl, drawn from the elders' winter tales. In the 1970s, during the environmental upheavals from taconite mining along Lake Superior's south, shore documented in EPA, reports as an era of polluted bays and acid rains that threatened wild rice harvest. A Ojibwe visionary led shaking tent rites near the Bad River Reservation, invoking auroral weaves to counter the industrial floods. The circle's drums summoning clearer waters that sustain the band's fisheries. This narrative shared in contemporary cultural centers amid the American Indian movement's activism. Preserved the spiritual maintenances that fortified the people, blending historical ecological battles with the Manitou's post-quest rites to firm the oaths that stemmed modern desecrations and reclaimed the land's balances. The drum quickens the ice's rumble, peaking as a crack splits the river's surface. Outside not a break but a sigh, the panther's coil settling deeper, the thunderbird's distant thunder answering in a soft roll that scatters snowflakes through the tent's flap. The rite closes with the elder's staff tapping thrice. The thunderstones glow, dimming as the kin disperse into the night. Their breaths plumes of shared resolve, the circle's warmth lingering in your chest like the seed's root. The tidal scar eases slightly. The hollow filled with the tense echoes Nukumis's stories reborn in the voices around the fire. The silence a bridge to the village's enduring hush. In case sensory details settle the vigil. The hides. Sweat cools to frost on the poles, the smoke's spice clings to your cloak like the straits. Brine turned protective. The air rings with the drum's fading thrum like oath-keepers' bells in repose. The heart's tide a gentle current now lapping at peace rather than flood. Hymnal fragments echo in the snow. Tents shake the sworn. Winters wake what oaths have worn. The through line cycles onward, the return's rhythms. Braiding motifs into seasonal loops, streams to frosts, temptations to vigils. The panther's dream a sleeping threat. Beneath the ice, the thunderbird's wing a promise overhead, the ledgers we've routed in the village's vigilant heart. You step from the tent into the starlit cold. The river's cracked ceiling under fresh snow, the peace holding like the seed's tender shoots beneath. Ancient mysteries endure in these winter rites, where heroes' returns forge communal watches. Their scars weaving personal tides into the people's strengths amid the deity's simmering feuds. The fulfilled oaths a cycle that mends through the season's unyielding turn. But the question that remained was, as the snow blanketed the greening beds and the ice held firm against the depths, would spring's thaw honor the rite's vigilance, or unleash the panther's coil in floods that drowned the woven peace anew? Spring's thaw arrives with a hesitant murmur. The Pick River's ice groaning under the sun's lengthening gaze. Cracks widening like the ledger's threads, stretching toward renewal. Their edges glinting with meltwater that trickles into the rice beds where the seed shoots push green against the lingering frost. You walk the shore at dawn, the tidal scar in your heart quickening with the river's stir, a subtle tide that echoes the strait's flood, and the panther's deferred coil now rumbling faintly beneath the surface, as if awakened by the season's pull. The village stirs with the thaw's promiskin, hauling birch canoes from winter storage, voices rising in laughter laced with the shaking tent's vigilant hush. The rain's legacy evident in the bed's burgeoning heads that sway like the aurora's faded veil. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such thaws embody the deity's precarious truce. Ancient mysteries where the deep's grudges test the sky's oaths in cycles of flood and growth. Thresholds where heroes guard the weave against unraveling. Echoing the vernal floods that challenge the Nile-esque gods in Egyptian lore, or the melting Joel's perils in Norse tales, where balances teeter on the edge of deluge. The river's flow swells overnight, carrying chunks of ice downstream in lazy procession, their undersides veined with blue, like the ice bridge's cracks reborn. And you pause at the mudflat, where the seed now anchors a cluster of vibrant stalks, their leaves unfurling spirals that mirror the thunderstone's hum in your pouch. The air warms with the scent of damp earth and budding willow. But an undercurrent of brine rises from the depths, sharpening the psychological tension, the winter vigil's resolve now strained by the thaw's whispers, the traded memory's hollow filling with phantom echoes of Nookamis's warnings about the panther's spring risings. Sensory creep builds along the bank, the mud sweats rivulets of melt that seep into your moccasins. Cool and insistent like the alcove's unswallowed rain turned probing, and the ice chunks clinked with a sonic texture of fracturing glass, layered with the river's deepening gurgle. Iron and scrapes from submerged rocks hinting at the coil's stir, the feather's warmth flaring erratically as if sensing the imbalance. By midday, the thaw escalates into a surge, the river rising to lap at the village's lower lodges. Waters muddied with silt that swirls like the wave Manitou's vortex, carrying whispers of flood that draw the kin to the shores in watchful clusters. Bidwid summons you to the Elder's Lodge, its cedar walls still scented with winter's sweetgrass, where a map of birch bark unrolls on the floor retchings of the pick S-bends marked with auroral threads. From the right S-flex, the ledger S we visualized in green lines now fraying at the edges where crimson snags pull from below. The coil awakens with the melt, he rumbles. Staff tapping the map with resonant thuds, building suspense in the confined space. The oath holds the reins, but the panther demands tribute will the weave mend, or flood the rooted peace. The elder's eyes shadowed by the season's toll reflect. The map spirals invoking a rite of renewal where the hero must navigate the rising waters, to reaffirm the balance the silence you bear now, a tool to listen to the river's core without alarm. The quirky detail of the thaw reveals itself in the map's threads. These auroral remnants, woven from the shaking tent's visions, possess an anomalous function where they pulse with the river's flow, illuminating safe eddies amid the surge, but bizarrely enforce a taboo against verbal commands. For speaking directions aloud tangles the lines into knots that summon minor whirlpools, forcing a traded glance from the kin, scarring the shared sight with blurred horizons. Trace them silently with the finger, and they guide true, the cost deferred to the soul's vigilant trace. You kneel to the bark, the feathers flex, dusting the threads, as the river outside roars louder, visions flickering. The panther's whiskers breaking the surface in distant bays. The thunderbird's wings circling overhead in thunderous promise the seed stalks, bending but unbreaking under the flood's edge. The psychological intrigue coils as the waters creep higher, lapping the lodge's threshold like the strait's insistent tug. The heart's tidal scar throbbing in sync, amplifying the deferred grudge into a tangible threat where the village S-piece hangs on the weave's reaffirmation. The rite propels you into action. Canoe relaunched into the swelling current with Bidwid's nod. The ash paddle dipping to trace the map's silent paths. Voices fading into the roar as you navigate the pick. S-bends where eddies swirl with illusory temptations. Ghostly blooms from the verdant circle floating on the foam, withered berries bobbing like the soft wind's lure, ice shards whispering windigo hungers from winter's vigil. The surge escalates, waves slapping the hull with the panther's purr, but the threads glow, parting the chaos to reveal a calm vein leading to the river S. Harta, submerged ledge where the coil manifests subtly. Green fire glinting through the murk-like eyes watching the oaths test. In this mythic logic, the Thaw's flood serves as the deity's seasonal guardian, its currents escalating the return's vigilance with consequential surges where heroes must reaffirm balances amid the melt costs like ode tracings, scarring the hands with silt veins that marked the weave's eternal watch. A local legend surges with the waters, drawn from the elders' flood sagas in the 2000s. During the record spring melts, exacerbated by climate shifts along Lake Superior, documented in Great Lakes water, authority reports as thaws that swelled tributaries and eroded shores near the Siouan-Anishinaabe Guardian traced auroral maps. Through flooded channels near Garden River, reaffirming oaths that stabilized the band's rice harvests amid rising levels. This contemporary tale, shared in intertribal councils amid environmental advocacy, preserved the spiritual navigations that sustained the people blending historical deluges with the Manitou's thaw rites to affirm the weaves that stemmed modern floods and reclaimed the water's covenants against warming tides and forgotten protections. The ledge nears, the green fire flaring as a whisker, breaches coiled and probing, demanding the tribute, a drop from the heart's scar. Pricked by the thunderstone's edge, mingling crimson with the melt to suit the depths. You comply and the canoes rock, blood sizzling on the water to release a scent of heated earth and brine, the threads tightening as the fire dims. The surge easing into a steady flow that carries you back toward the village, the panther's coil retreating with a final rumble. Sensory details crest then ebb. The wave's froth numbs the spray, then warms with the blood-s rite. The air rings with the current's settling gurgle like oathkeepers' drums in diminuendo, and the map's threads fade to rest, their glow etched in your traced palm like a new scar of silt. A confessional rises in the calming flow, coil of depths. Your thaw tests the woven. Does this tribute honor the vigil, or merely defer the flood's true storm? The river answers with a hush, the seed's stalk straightening in the distance, the kin's fires welcoming as the waters recede. Hymnal fragments ripple in the wake, thaws flood the sworn, traces hold what surges have worn. The through-line cycles deeper, the spring's melt braiding motifs into renewal's loopsice, to surge vigils to tributes the panther's grudge, a tempered current beneath the greening. The Thunderbird's oath a steady wing over the shores, the ledgers we've reaffirmed in the village's enduring flow. You beach amid the kin's cheers, the map rolled and returned. The tidal scar steadying to a gentle lap, the hollow bridged by the shared rites echoes. Ancient mysteries thaw in these seasonal surges where heroes' returns guard the deities. Truces their reaffirmations, weaving personal scars into the people's resilient currents, amid the eternal feuds of sky and deep the balanced oaths, a cycle that mends through the water's unyielding rise. But the question that remained was, as the river settled and the rice beds flourished under the sun's full gaze, would summer's heat honor this traced peace, or ignite the panther's coil and droughts that parch the woven rains anew? Summer's sun climbs relentless over the Pick River, baking the shores where the rice beds flourish and golden. Abundance, their stalks heavy with grain that sways like the ledger-esque green threads. Woven thick from spring-s, surge a bounty that fills the village's stores with the scent of parched earth and ripening seed. You tend the seed's cluster at the mudflat's edge, it spirals, now a thriving patch that draws bees and humming clouds. The tidal scar in your heart, a warm undercurrent that laps steadily with the river's summer flow, echoing the thaw's tribute and the panther's tempered coil beneath the sun's glare. The kin harvest with songs that rise like the aurora's summer veils, laughter mingling. With the splash of paddles on bountiful waters, the oath's reigns holding firm in this season of growth amid the ancient mysteries where deities. Truces bloom before the heat's test. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such summers embody the sky's vigilant wing over the deep simmering grudge. Thresholds where heroes nurture the weave against the parching pull, echoing the drought-plagued summers that scorched the Greek isles or the fiery forges that tempered. Norse heroes and Muspelheim's blaze balances teetering on the edge of withered oaths. The heat builds insidiously, the river's level dropping to reveal cracked mudflats veined with dry lightning scars. The air shimmering with haze that carries the faint, acrid temps of scorched pine from distant wildfires. You stand at the water's receding edge, the feather in your cloak warming uncomfortably against your skin. Its pulse is erratic, as if sensing the imbalance the winter vigil's hush. and spring's tracing now strained by the sun's unyielding demand. The traded memories hollow, filling with dusty echoes of Nookamis's tales of drought-born feuds. Sensory creep intensifies under the blaze. The mud sweats a brittle crust that crumbles underfoot like the alcove's salt turned desiccated, tasting of baked clay on the wind. And the rice stalks rustle with a sonic texture of brittle whispers. Layered with the river's diminishing trickle, a nanner creaks from contracting earth, hinting at the coil's ignition. The thunderstones hum, rising and warning like a distant storm denied. By the solstice's peak, the drought escalates into a parching gale, winds sweeping from the south to wither the bed's edges, leaves curling like the map's frayed threads under an assault that summons the kin to the central lodge in anxious council. Bidwid unrolls the birch bark anew its auroral lines. Now fading where crimson snags pull from the heat's core, the elder's voice cutting through the dry air. The wing shields, but the panther's fire licks the roots. The oath demands fire's tribute, or the weave chars too. Ash, his staff, taps the map with parched thuds, building suspense in the lodge's stifling warmth, invoking a rite of scorching renewal, where the hero must brave the gale to reaffirm the balance. The silence you bear now, a shield to endure the blaze's roar without cry. The quirky detail of the drought reveals itself in the map's threads. These sun-bleached auroral remnants pulse with the wind-est heat, illuminating paths through the withered fields, but bizarrely enforce a taboo against shade-seeking. For sheltering under willow boughs tangles the lines into fiery knots that ignite minor blazes, forcing a traded shadow from the kin, scarring the shared light with blinded moments. Follow them exposed under the sun, and they guide true, the cost deferred to the soul's sun-scorched vigil. You venture into the gale with the map clutched close, the feathers flex sparking faintly as the winds howl, visions flickering, the panther's green fire twisting into orange flames along the riverbed. The thunderbird's wings beating thunder that evaporates before rain, the seed's stalks browning but unyielding at the core. The psychological intrigue scorches as the heat blisters the air. The heart's tidal scar drying to a fierce throb, amplifying the deferred grudge into a tangible blaze, where the village's bounty hangs on the weave's reaffirmation. The rite carries you through the parched fields' moccasins, tracing the map silent. Paths amid swirling dust devils that whisper temptation's illusory oases from the verdant circle shimmering in the haze. Sun-ripe berries dangling like the soft wind's lure reborn in flame, dry winds murmuring windigo thirsts from winter's echo. The gale peaks at the river's cracked heart, a scorched ledge where the coil ignites. Subtly flames licking from fissures like the panther's tongue demanding the tribute. A drop from the sun-fevered brow anointed by the reed flute's heated edge, mingling sweat with the earth to quench the blaze. In this mythic logic, the summer's drought serves as the deity's fiery guardian, its gales escalating the return's nurture with consequential chars where heroes must reaffirm balances amid the parched costs. Like ode tracing scarring the skin with sun veins that mark the weave's eternal blaze. A local legend ignites with the winds drawn from the elders' drought chronicles in the 1980s, during the prolonged dry spells that gripped the Great Lakes region, documented in USDA reports as summers of record heat that withered wild rice and strained fisheries. Near the Whitefish River on Anishinaabe Stewart traced auroral paths through scorched meadows near the Salon, reaffirming oaths that summoned timely storms to revive the band's gardens amid agricultural crises. This story, recounted in tribal environmental forums amid the era's acid rain treaties, preserved the spiritual nurtures that sustained the people, blending historical aridities with the monitored summer rites to affirm the weaves that quenched modern droughts and reclaimed the sun's covenants against warming gales and forgotten alliances. The ledge glows, flames flaring as a tongue of fire breaches, probing and lashing. The tribute poured to sizzle on the cracks, releasing a scent of steamed earth and ozone. The threads tightening as the blaze recedes, the gale easing into a warm breeze that carries you back toward the village. The panther's coils smoldering with a final crackle. Sensory details blaze, then fade. The wind's dust stings the eyes, then clears with the sweat's right. The air rings with the gale's settling sigh, like oath-keepers' drums in hush. The map's threads cool to rest, their glow etched in your sun-marked brow like a new scar of vein. A confessional rises in the calming heat. Fire of depths, your drought tests the woven. Does this tribute honor the nurturer, or merely defer the blaze's true storm? The river responds with a deepened trickle, the seed stalks greening anew in the distance, the kin's lodges welcoming as the winds subside. Hymnal fragments whisper in the breeze, summer's parch the sworn. The through-line cycles hotter, the summer's heat braiding motifs into growth's loops thawed a drought. Tributes to quenchings the panthers grudge a banked ember beneath the ripening. The thunderbird's oath a steady wing over the shores, the ledgers we've reaffirmed in the village's enduring blaze. You return amid the kin's relieved murmurs, the map furled and shared, the tidal scar cooling to a gentle warmth, the hollow bridged by the rite's communal shade. Ancient mysteries scorch in these seasonal gales where heroes turns guard the deities. Truces their reaffirmations, weaving personal scars into the peoples. Resilient fires amid the eternal feuds of sky. And deep the balanced oaths, a cycle that mends through the sun's unyielding gaze. But the question that remained was, as the river swelled once more and the rice harvest filled the stores under the fading heat, would autumn's winds honor this quenched peace, or scatter the panther's coil in gales that strip the woven bounty anew? Autumn's winds sweep in from the north with a restless sigh stripping the pick. Rivers' shores where the rice harvest fills, the village's stores golden sheaves bundled like the ledger-esque green threads now fraying. At the edges under the season-esque gathering gusts, you secure the seed's thriving patch against the first bluster, its spirals bending but rooted deep in the mudflat's hold. The tidal scar in your heart whipping like a flag in the breeze, echoing the summer-esque quenched blaze, and the panther-esque banked coil now stirring as scattered embers in the air as chill. The kin thresh with rhythmic flails' voices, carrying songs of gratitude laced with the shaking tent's vigilant hush, the oath-esque bounty evident in the overflowing caches that promise winter-esque sustenance amid the ancient mysteries where deities. Truces scatter before the gale's test. In the Anishinaabe pantheon, such autumns embody the deep's probing whispers against the sky's steadfast wing. Thresholds where heroes gather the weave against the stripping pole, echoing the harvest gales that ravaged the Mediterranean. Fields in Greek lore, or the wind-swept falls that heralded Valhalla, calls in Norse tales, balances teetering on the edge of barren oaths. The gales build steadily, leaves spiraling from the willows and russet whirlwinds that carry the faint, musty tang of decaying undergrowth from the forest's edge. You stand at the river's bend, the feather in your cloak fluttering wildly against your chest its pulses. Erratic as if sensing the imbalance the spring-esque tracing and summer-esque quenching now strained by the winds. Unyielding demand, the traded memory-esque hollow filling with gusty echoes of Nukamus-esque. Cautions about the panther-esque fall risings. Sensory creep whips along the bank. The earth sweats a loose topsoil that scatters underfoot, like the alcove salt-turned. Airborne tasting of leaf mold on the gusts and the rice sheaves rustle with a sonic texture of tearing whispers, layered with the river's whipping waves. Iron and iron howls from bending branches hinting at the coils scattering the thunderstones. Hum rising in defiance like a storm's prelude. By the equinox's turn, the winds escalate into a stripping tempest gales, howling from the depths to uproot the beds. Fringes sheaves flying like the map's frayed threads under an assault that summons the kin to. The central lodge in urgent assembly, Bidwid unrolls the birch bark once more. Its auroral lines now twisting where crimson snags lash from the gale's core, the elder's voice piercing the draught through the walls. The wing gathers. But the panther's breath scatters the roots the oath demands wind's tribute, or the weave strips to bone. His staff taps the map with whipping thuds, building suspense in the lodge's shuddering. His confines invoking a rite of gathering renewal, where the hero must brave the tempest to reaffirm the balance. The silence you bear now. Anchor to endure the gale's roar without scatter. The quirky detail of the winds reveals itself in the map's threads. These gale-tossed auroral remnants pulse with the air's fury, illuminating paths through the uprooted fields. But bizarrely enforce a taboo against grasping. For clutching at flying sheaves tangles the lines into whirlwind knots that summon dust storms. Forcing a traded breath from the kin, scarring the shared voice with silence calls. Pursue them unbound under the gale, and they guide true, the cost deferred to the soul's wind-lashed vigil. You venture into the tempest with the map secured, the feathers flex swirling faintly as the winds buffet visions. Flickering, the panther's green fire whipping into leaf fires along the riverbank, the thunderbird's wings fanning gusts that evaporate. Before calm, the seed stalks whipping but anchored at the core. The psychological intrigue lashes as the gales tear at your cloak. The heart's tidal scar gusting to a fierce whirl, amplifying the deferred grudge into a tangible scatter where the village's harvest hangs on the weave's reaffirmation. The right sweeps you through the stripped fields' moccasins, tracing the map's silent paths amid vortexes that whisper temptations, lusori winds from Nanabozo's soft lure, carrying bountiful sheaves. Verdant blooms scattering like the circle's wilt, reborn in flight, gusty murmurs echoing windigo hungers from winter's vigil. The tempest peaks at the river's windswept Harda, uprooted ledge where the coil scatters subtly leaves, coiling from fissures like the panther's breath demanding the tribute. A drop from the wind-chapped lip anointed by the reed flute's whistling edge mingling blood with the gale to ground the scatter. In this mythic logic, the autumn's winds serve as the deities. Lashing guardian, its gales escalating, the returns gathering with consequential strips, where heroes must reaffirm balances amid the uproot costs, like ode pursuits scarring the flesh with wind veins that mark the weave's eternal lash. A local legend lashes with the gales, drawn from the elders' harvest chronicles in the 1990s, during the fierce autumn storms that battered the Great Lakes shores, documented in National Weather Service reports as gales that scattered fisheries and eroded rice beds near the Botswana Bandan. Anishinaabe harvester traced auroral paths through whipping meadows near reaffirming oaths that gathered the remnants to feed the community amid supply chain disruptions. This narrative shared in cultural harvest festivals amid the era's global trade shifts preserved the spiritual gatherings that sustain the people, blending historical tempests with the Manitus, autumn rites to affirm the weaves that stemmed modern scatters and reclaimed the winds, covenants against changing climates and forgotten bounties. The ledge howls, leaves flaring as a breath of coil breaches lashing and probing. The tribute spilled to whirl on the gusts, releasing a scent of grounded earth and ozone. The threads tightening as the scatter calms, the tempest easing into a steady breeze that carries you back toward the village, the panther's coil gathering with a final sigh. Sensory details lash then settle. The wind's debris stings the face then clears with the blood's right. The air rings with the gale's fading howl like oath-keepers' drums in diminuendo. And the map's threads still to rest, their glow etched in your chapped skin like a new scar of vein. A confessional rises in the calming gust, breath of depths. Your winds test the woven. Does this tribute honor the gathering or merely defer the scatter's true storm? The river responds with a steadied ripple, the seed stalks resettling in the distance, the kin's lodges welcoming as the gales subside. Hymnal fragments sigh in the breeze, autumn strip the sworn. Pursuits hold what gales have worn. The through-line cycles windier, autumn's gales braiding motifs into harvest's loops drought to scatter. Tributes to groundings, the panther's grudge a banked whisper beneath the bundling. The thunderbird's oath a steady wing over the shores, the ledgers we've reaffirmed in the village's enduring lash. You return amid the kin's grateful calls, the map furled and distributed, the tidal scar steadying to a gentle breeze, the hollow bridged by the right's communal hold. Ancient mysteries whip in these seasonal gales, where heroes turns guard the deities. Truces their reaffirmations, weaving personal scars into the people's resilient winds amid the eternal feuds of sky. And deep the balanced oaths, a cycle that mends through the gale's unyielding sweep. But the question that remained was, as the river quieted and the harvest secured the stores under the turning leaves, would winter's frost honor this grounded peace, or freeze the panther's coil and ices that lock the woven bounty anew? Winter's frost descends with a crystalline hush over the Pick River, encasing the harvest-secured shores in a sheath of ice that gleams like the ledger's green threads, now rigid and veined with frost lace, locking the bounty in frozen vigil. Against the season's deepening grip, you patrol the river's frozen expanse at twilight, the seed's patch blanketed in snow, but pulsing faintly beneath. It spirals a dormant thrum that counters the tidal scar in your heart, now stiffening like rime on the waves. Echoing the autumn-esque rounded gale, in the panther-esque banked coil freezing into unyielding spikes below the surface. The kin huddle and lodges aglow with firelight tales of the weave shared in low murmurs laced with the shaking tent's enduring hush. The oath's stores holding firm in the season of lock, amid the ancient mysteries where deities' truces crystallized before the cold test. In the Anishinaab's pantheon, such winters embody the deep's rigid grudge against the sky's insulating wing. Thresholds where heroes fortify the weave against the freezing pull, echoing the eternal ices that bound the Norse Niflheim, or the frostbound quests that chilled Greek heroes in the underworld's grip. Balance is teetering on the edge of shattered oaths. The cold intensifies relentlessly, the river's ice thickening to a vast, creaking plain veined with blue shadows that whisper of submerged currents halted mid-flow. You pause at the frozen mudflat, the feather in your cloak stiffening against the chill. Its pulses muted, as if sensing the imbalance the summer-s quenching, and autumn-s gathering now strained. By the frost's unyielding demand, the traded memories hollow, filling with icy echoes of Nookamisa's lore on winter-born feuds. Sensory creep hardens along the ice. The surface sweats a hoary film that cracks underfoot like the alcove of salt turned brittle, tasting of frozen mist on the exhalations, and the snowdrifts sigh with a sonic texture of muffled crunches, layered with the river's subdued groan beneath. Iron snaps from contracting ice hinting at the coil's freezing, the thunderstones hum rising in protest like a thaw's distant call. By the solstice's longest night, the frost escalates into a locking blizzard. Winds howling to bury the lodges and drifts that seal the stores like the map's rigid threads, under an assault that summons the kin to the central lodge and huddled council. Idwood unrolls the birch bark by firelight its auroral lines. Now frosting where crimson snags spike from the cold's core, the elder's voice warming the drafty air. The wing insulates, but the panther's ice locks the roots the oath demands. Frost's tribute or the weave shatters to shards. His staff taps the map with icy clinks, building suspense in the lodge's frost-rimed walls, invoking a rite of fortifying. Renewal where the hero must brave the blizzard to reaffirm the balance, the silence. You bear now a barrier to endure the cold's bite without fracture. The quirky detail of the frost reveals itself in the map's threads. These icebound auroral remnants pulse with the blizzard's chill, illuminating paths through the drifts but bizarrely enforce a taboo against warming. For kindling a small fire along the way tangles the lines into frost knots that summon cracking crevasses, forcing a traded warmth from the kin, scarring the shared hearth with chilled hearths. Traverse them exposed in the gale, and they guide true, the cost deferred to the soul's frostbitten vigil. You venture into the blizzard with the map wrapped close. The feathers flex crystallizing faintly as the winds scour. Visions flickering, the panther's green fire hardening into blue ice along the river's depths. The thunderbird's wings fanning warmth that solidifies before melt, the seed stalks encased but vital at the core. The psychological intrigue freezes as the cold numbs the limbs. The heart's tidal scar icing to a sharp stab, amplifying the deferred grudge into a tangible lock where the village sustenance hangs on the weave's scary affirmation. The rite carries you across the frozen plain. Moccasins tracing the map, a silent paths, amid snow vortexes that whisper temptations, illusory thaws from the verdant circle shimmering in the whiteout. Frost-crusted berries dangling like the soft winds lure reborn in rhyme. Howling murmurs, echoing Wendigo hungers from the season's own vigil. The blizzard peaks at the river's iced harda, frozen ledge, where the coil locks subtly spikes of ice thrusting from fissures like the panther's frozen claws. Demanding the tribute, a drop from the frost-chapped finger anointed by the thunderstone's chilled edge mingling blood with the ice to shatter the lock. In this mythic logic, the winter's frost serves as the deity's rigid guardian, its blizzards escalating the return's fortification with consequential locks where heroes must reaffirm. Balances amid the freeze costs like ode traversals scarring the flesh with frost veins that mark the weave's eternal chill. A local legend freezes with the winds drawn from the elders. Winter Chronicles. In the 2010s, during the polar vortex events that gripped the Great Lakes, documented in NOAA reports as extreme, colds that locked rivers and threatened food stores near the Kino Bay on Anishinaabe, Wayfinder traced auroral paths through buried trails near Baraga, reaffirming oaths that unlocked timely thaws to access the band's caches amid energy crises. This modern tale, shared in community resilience workshops amid climate adaptation efforts, preserved the spiritual fortifications that sustained. The people blending historical deep freezes with the Monotus. Winter writes to affirm the weaves that melted modern locks and reclaimed the frost-esque covenants against volatile seasons and forgotten provisions. The ledge creaks spikes flaring as a claw of ice breaches, probing and rigid, the tribute spilled to crack on the surface, releasing a scent of thawed earth and crisp air, the threads tightening as the lock fractures, the blizzard easing into a still snowfall that guides you back. Toward the village, the panthers coil, encasing with a final snap. Sensory details freeze, then thaw. The wind's bite numbs the skin, then eases with the blood's right. The air rings with the blizzard's fading wail like oath-keepers' drums in silence. And the map's threads warm to rest, their glow etched in your chapped flesh like a new scar of vein. A confessional rises in the settling snow, claw of depths. Your frost tests the woven. Does this tribute honor the fortification, or merely defer the lock's true storm? The river responds with a subtle shift beneath the ice, the seeds patch dusted but secure in the distance, the kin's lodge is welcoming as the cold relents. Hymnal fragments hush in the snowfall, winter's lock the sworn. Traversals hold what frosts have worn, the through-line cycles colder. The winter's frost braiding motifs into vigils loops, gales to locks. Tributes to shatters the panther's grudge, a banked crystal beneath the blanketing. The Thunderbird's oath a steady wing over the shores, the ledgers we've reaffirmed in the village's enduring chill. You return amid the kin's warmed embraces, the map stored and recounted. The tidal scar steadying to a gentle frost, the hollow bridged by the rite's communal fire. Ancient mysteries crystallize in these seasonal blizzards where heroes, turns guard the deities, truces their reaffirmations, weaving personal scars into the people's resilient ices amid the eternal feuds of sky and deep the balanced oaths, a cycle that mends through the frost's unyielding hold. But the question that remained was, as the ice held firm and the stores sustained the hearths under the starlit vault, would spring's melt honor this shattered peace, or unleash the panther's coil in floods that drowned the woven vigil anew? Years weave onward along the Pick River's unyielding curve, the seasons turning like the ledger's eternal threads green, dominant yet laced with crimson snags that pull from the depths. The oaths balance a living cycle, where the pantheress coil simmers eternally beneath the Thunderbird's vigilant wing. You stand once more at the mudflat's edge in the hush of a late summer eve. The seed's descendants now a verdant thicket that shades the rice beds heavy with grain. Their spirals a testament to the verdant guardian's wilted gift. Thriving amid the blaze's quenched heat and the melt's stemmed floods. The tidal scar in your heart has become a familiar rhythm, no longer a pounding rush or icy stab, but a steady lap that sinks. With the river's flow echoing every tribute paid, the blood pricks from cliff to strait, the silence is owed intent and gale the traded hollow air. Nukumisa's gaze resides as a quiet anchor in the kin's shared stories. The village endures lodges, rebuilt stronger after each season's trial, kin faces etched with the weave's wisdom their songs, carrying the shaking tent, hush into the firesides where children trace auroral. Maps on birch bark, learning the motifs that bind sky and deep. The feather integrated into your cloak, these many cycles hums softly in the twilight. Its anomalous function evolved a quirky temperament where it now sheds flecks that illuminate not just truths in smoke, but the ledger. As long arc enforcing no taboo, but a gentle reminder. The cost scar to remind miracles mend what feuds have torn. You touch it absently, visions flickering faint. The eclipse's deer bounding across starry vaults unchanged. Nanabozo's laughter in the reeds a recurring whisper. The wave Manitou's spindles spinning threads that tangle and realign without end. The panther's green fire glinting eternally in dreams, subdued but unextinguished by the oath's blood. The psychological tension, once a coiling storm in your core, has settled into a profound equilibrium. The epic scope of the journey broadened to the village's breadth, where heroes like you fade into elders. The prophecies stir at Agua, a foundational tale recited in every rite. Its fulfillment not a singular victory, but an ongoing guardianship amid the ancient mysteries of the Anishenia pantheon. Bidwit has passed to the starfields, his staff now yours. Topped with the Thunderstone's kin that pulses in harmony with the reed flute in your pouch, their duet a constant undercurrent to the river's lap. The kin gather at dusk for the solstice's eve fires crackling along the shore where the seed's thicket frames the circle. Voices rising in full hymn. Wings turn the rain. Depths sleep in vain. Oaths weave what seasons have worn. Sensory details envelop the rite. The air sweats a warm mist from the day's heat. Beating on your skin like the alcoves do turn nostalgic, tasting of wild ginger and ripened rice on the breeze. And the flames pop layers with the water's gentle slosh. Iron and Anoran echoes from the depths, now a subdued purr. The feather's warmth sinking with the fire's glow like the aurora's eternal veil. No new trial stirs this night, the summer's blaze honored in timely storms. Spring's melt channeled without deluge, autumn's gales gathered before strip. Winter's frost locked but shattered on cubit, the ledger's crimson lingers in the smoke's curl. A reminder that the panther's coiled to furs never dies, the thunderbird's oath a shield that demands vigilant renewal. In this mythic logic, the epilogue unfolds not as closure, but as the cycle's quiet heart, where the deities. Feuds persist in balanced tensions, fanning rains against deep coils. Floods trickster winds, luring before truth's ground elemental. Guardians testing the weave's resilience across seasons unending. The costs accumulate softly. Silences that muffle joy's peaks, but amplify the kin's bonds. Scars like the heart's tide that scar the flesh with vein maps of every reaffirmation. Traded memories hollowing the self to fill the communal vessel. A local legend evolved from the elders' chronicles into the village's living lore, threads through the rite, spanning from the 1800s. Long winters to the 21st century, a swarming, thaws documented in oral archives, and modern indigenous reports as eras of resilience against colonial frosts. Industrial droughts and climatic gales, an unbroken line of oath-keepers like you has traced auroral paths through every trial, their tributes weaving the Monitu's covenants into the people's enduring story, blending historical upheavals with the pantheon's eternal balances to affirm the land's sacred rhythms against all encroachments. You rise in the circle's close staff, tapping the earth with a resonant thud that vibrates through the thicket, the thunderstone. Hum blending with the reed flute warmth into a final hymnal fragment. Cycles turn the sworn. Villages hold what journeys have worn. The kin nod. Faces illuminated by fire and starlight, the hollow bridged not by illusion, but by the weave's shared pulse nucamus gaze reborn in their eyes. The prophecy a cycle that mends through scars. Sensory creep settles into serenity. The mist cools to night dew on the rice heads, the air rings with the hymn's fading echo like distant oath-keepers. Bells the river's lap a lullaby that carries the panther's purr into peaceful depths. The heart's tide a gentle current lapping at enduring peace. Ancient mysteries culminate in these cyclical returns where heroes' paths forge into communal legacies, their reaffirmations, weaving personal costs into the people's timeless strengths amid the deity's grand feuds. The fulfilled oaths, a perpetual bridge between ordinary shores and divine imperatives, scarring to heal in the river's endless flow. And in the end, as the stars wheel overhead with the thunderbird's eye unblinking, the question dissolves into the weave itself. The panther's coil stirs eternally, but the village drinks deep from the rains that never fully cease.